What up, everyone? Welcome back to Recipe for Reality with Zach and Dill. Zach, you're looking great tonight. How you feeling? You're looking exquisite, if you will, or if you want to make it even weirder, very handsome and charming. Jerry O'Connell was didn't really know how to take the compliments tonight.
No, Jerry was a weird call tonight, but
I've never seen anyone that excited to host Big Brother in a while, so I'll take it. But it was very funny every time they mentioned like handsome, exquisite, good looking. He was just like, oh, okay, like he didn't know how to
thanks.
take the compliment.
Well, let's get to the vote.
But anyway, we're here to recap weeks 4 through 8 on Big Brother. We kind of talked about
I don't even
4
remember where we left off.
When we left off 4, we knew the nominations and we knew Tucker was going to do this whole move to keep himself on the block. Like we knew that was happening, but we figured it was if Tucker wins AI Arena or whatever, America's going to put up Quinn and they're just going to vote out. I don't know if it was oh no, that was Quinn's HOH. So we'd come off the week before where Quinn was on the block from America, Kenny went home, and then we were going into Quinn's deepfake HOH, where so Tucker had already made that move to get Angela off the block, saved himself. Then he was on the block and he had to save himself. And then it was Rubina and Cedric. That's what it was. And they decided to flip it on Cedric. And that was something we didn't know was going to happen in the moment. We were just saying, Cedric's a pawn. Since then, we've seen the entire power structure crumble where we were like Chelsea and Brooklyn are running things. After that week, that Pentagon is blown up. Brooklyn sinks to the bottom, gets out herself. Then Tucker's in control. Then Tucker goes out the very next week. And then we see kind of a weird week where Quinn's HOH, things go wrong. Angela's saved by the veto by Leah. Joseph goes home. And then this week where it ends up being Quinn's demise. So we've basically seen like, except for Joseph.
Okay, Leah goes home?
No, Quinn.
No, did you say last week Leah went home?
No, Leah uses the veto on Angela and Joseph goes home. I think every week besides last week, the person who was at the head of power has been dethroned the next week. So Cedric is in big power. Kenny goes home. Cedric very next week gets sent out on Quinn's HOH. Then Brooklyn's in power. Brooklyn's dethroned. Brooklyn goes home. Then Tucker's in power. Tucker goes home. Then Quinn's in power. Quinn goes home. And there's like the Joseph boot in between. Joseph was never really in power, but even then, that was still like a takedown of the power structure being Quinn, kind of having these numbers, getting them back after the Brooklyn fiasco. I actually think Brooklyn going home kind of open things up to kind of rekindle that Pentagon stuff with Chelsea and Quinn, getting in Leah in the mix, Mackenzie now kind of getting into the mix of the conversation. But a lot has happened and it has been quite crazy because last time we talked, we were like, Tucker, if he pulls off those big moves again, leaves himself on the block, like we thought Tucker was going home the last time we talked because he hadn't won the AI Arena yet. And then of course he does, which ends up being how, Cedric goes home instead of Rubina, right? Or does he win the veto and then they put Rubina up? That might have been it.
Yes.
It's all blurring together in my head. But basically, all the big threats now have kind of been taken out. And it's kind of like those mid-tier threats, the people that are social and strategic threats that are now kind of running the house because the big comp beasts, Tucker and Quinn, and even the ones who had the most alliances like Brooklyn and Cedric are gone. So Zach, what are you feeling about Big Brother now? Now we're at week 8. We've officially gone through our first week without the AI Arena, and now we have 8 people left. Are you still as high as you were when we talked on week 3?
Are you kidding me? So something that I thought was very interesting, Dylan, is every year, I mean, the talk surrounding Big Brother goes one of two ways, right? Pretty early on, people are like, great A season. We're eating good finally now, like blah, 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 whatever. And then or the very opposite, like from week 1, everyone's like, this is horrible. I hate it. I don't want it. You only see like 2 or 3 people that are being rooted for on social media. The edit from the show is only favoring really like 1 or 2 people throughout the entire season. Mm-hmm. This season, no matter what, right? Whether you're a Tucker fan or an Angela fan or a Quinn fan, pretty much everyone I feel like has the same style of edit because right now, everybody at one point or another, everybody's won a competition, right? Everybody in that house.
Everyone except for Joseph had won a competition and Brooklyn. Yeah.
And now everyone in the house, everyone has won at least one competition. Mm-hmm. Multiple people have won at least 2 competitions.
Yeah.
The veto's been used every single week. It has never not been used, which is unbelievable. And the fact, what's it's very different from even last season and pretty much the last like 2 or 3 seasons where we were really never seeing the veto being used unless it was won by the person on the block or the number one ally of one of the people on the block. We were always seeing kind of like the nominations at the beginning of the week were the nominations that we ended the week with. Things were not interesting in terms of like they had decided who was going home by like Sunday night.
Well, and another thing is the vetoes that were being used were always going to be used because the whole plan was let's backdoor. So, for example, Brent in Big Brother 20, what was the year of the cookout? 23, 24. No, the cookout. Brent. He went out third. He was the third person out. Frenchie's Brent. That.
Oh, I don't even remember, man.
23 or whatever. It was the same season as Whitney and Brent, like that pre-merge or pre-jury with like Frenchie. So like the whole thing was
Brent's
that the whole
Brent. I understand.
Brent, not Brett. But like the whole week was we're gonna blindside Brent and backdoor him. Same thing with like Pooch or something. But it was very much like let's not nominate him, make sure he doesn't play the veto, and then backdoor him. The veto was used, but the whole plan was a backdoor the whole time. This season, if the veto is used and someone's backdoored, it is always a very last minute plan. We saw that this week. We saw that tonight, where it was very much like Mackenzie decided after she won the veto, I'm keeping noms the same. Then an hour later, just based on this information that Chelsea gets, they spin the plan to save Angela and go after Quinn and Leah, and then even then narrowed it down to Quinn.
Based on information that's not correct, right? Like very, it's semi-correct in the fact that like they're mingling and they're in and they're not like against one another, but like she didn't walk in on a secret meeting of people coming together to vote Angela. Angela walked in on 4 people talking to one another. And she had made the decision that is a group of 4 who will vote me out. That's a group of 4 of whom will vote me out on Thursday, and I don't want that to happen.
Well, yeah, and my whole overall point too, it's like, like all these backdoors, they're happening so last minute to where like we have not had a single week where like the person who is week 1 target is the target at the end of the week, except for Brooklyn. And in that case, it was still such a huge deal because Tucker had just gone back to back with being on the block and surviving an AI arena, then to winning the veto. And I did just fact check it. He won the veto. It was Mackenzie who won the AI arena. That's where it was Cedric and Rubina. So it wasn't Tucker winning AI. But either way, Tucker had just gone on this amazing comp stretch to where Brooklyn was his target from the beginning of the week, and Brooklyn was his target at the end of the week. But even then, even though that was the most straightforward week, there was still the suspense of, well, if Brooklyn wins AI, now it's Chelsea and Cam, and they were going to flip the vote on Cam. And I think that's what's so interesting is even when there's a foreshadowed, like this is our target, and it ends up being the same target at the end of the week, I don't think that has happened except for Brooklyn. Because I'm looking, even week 1, I mean, I guess Lisa was another example of that. But like week 1, the target is not Matt at the start of the week. It becomes Matt. Week 2, Lisa is pretty much the target the whole week. Okay, I will stand by that, I guess. Week 3, the target for most of the week, I guess, is a mixture of like Tucker and Quinn, and then it becomes Kenny just by default. But then week 4, you know, the target is Tucker. He takes himself off. The target's Mackenzie. She takes herself off. Cedric and Rubina. The target's Rubina. It ends up being Cedric. Week 5, Brooklyn's a target. Brooklyn goes home. That's the exception. Week 7, the target is likely, week 6, the target is likely, I was going to say Mackenzie, but then Mackenzie gets off, so they get out Tucker. Then week 7 is the target is like Rubina, I guess, or Rubina and Chemo, and then it ends up being Joseph. So every single week, and then this week included, it was Angela, then it changed to Quinn. I just think it's so fun that the targets, I know I just rambled off so many names at once, but it is one of those seasons it's hard to keep up with because every single week is its own pocket. It feels like you could watch every week isolated on its own, and it's just a really entertaining week of Big Brother. There's no stale weeks. Even though tonight, we knew going into tonight, based on the feeds, that Quinn was probably going home, just the way the episode unfolded, I actually started to believe there might be a chance. And even if there wasn't, I still enjoyed watching him fight for it. Whereas I feel like the everything's so set in stone by the time we get to eviction night so many seasons, like you were saying. And it's so great that the vetoes are being used, but also that the people who are going up after the vetoes are very much blindsided and not necessarily given the tip. And even if it's someone like Quinn who's given the tip, he's given the tip 30 minutes before, and it's fun to see him scramble. This is the most I've liked Quinn was this week. And I think it's because I like to see them fight. And I think that was the same with Tucker. I think that was even the same last week with Chemo. Chemo did something super underrated that no one's talking about. He's the first person, I think, ever to actually sway votes by your speech. Because everyone says the speech doesn't matter. The speech is your time to shout out your family and just say goodbye to the house. But he used that speech to make an emotional connection, and it swayed not one, but 2 people. I think this season is so good, and I think even without the AI arena, I was worried because I was like, is this going to be boring? And it's not. And I think there's a big reason, and it's the thumbnail, and it's what you said. It was misinformation. She got the wrong reads, but it still ended up working in her benefit. And she had a point. Quinn is a threat, and I think that's the main point. She just kind of presented it in the wrong way, but it's Angela. Angela, we all thought that when Tucker went, the season was going to go under. No, when Angela goes, the season might go under because it's Angela who is bringing the drama, the flips, the tension. Because I think everyone realizes getting her out now makes no sense when there are bigger fish to fry. But also, we need to get her out because she's stirring so much drama. So it's this perfect little balance. You know who it reminds me of in a weird way? Vanessa. This is very Vanessa. I mean, it's very emotional, but at the same time, you want to work with her because you don't want to be on her bad side. Because every single person who's wronger has gone home Grim Reaper style.
Angela has, I mean, the other person you can equate her to if you want to give her a winning game is Taylor, right? Taylor has a similar story, right? She goes up on the block so many times. Everybody who either sits next to her on the block goes home, or she takes them out pretty soon after, like whatever it is, if she's the one who comes off. But like the biggest thing I think in terms of Angela is that, and we'll roll the clip eventually when we get to the end of the season, right? Where you were a little bit higher on Angela than I was, and it wasn't because I didn't think she could have a good game, but what her main focuses were as a player was she wanted to play like Cody Calafieri, which Cody Calafieri is not irrational and like jarring. He is like level-headed and suave and charming. I agree with you. I think her level of game and crazy is Vanessa level, if not even just like, oh my God, like almost like a good Nicole, if that makes sense, like a season 22 Nicole without being like an awful person. Because again, like you're not going to get rid of Nicole. You know that it doesn't make sense to get rid of Nicole, but Nicole is the one who goes and makes things happen, whether it's by accident or not, because she talks to the right person or sees the wrong thing and like takes it the wrong way. So what I also want to challenge for a second the idea that like if Angela goes home, the season kind of goes dead, because I still don't think that's true. No, because they have all in that house wronged each other enough that this is why I like it, right? And I was talking to Rachel about this the other day. What I like so much about this season and why I think it's such a good season is that at every moment, right? You talked about like how the person in power goes home. Usually the next week the top dog ends up being, the one cast out to the backyard. What I love is that every week the person who seems, or every week or every like 2 weeks, the person who seems to have been in the worst possible position has somehow made themselves the most influential person in that. And Angela's a perfect example. But honestly, the person who I think is the best example of the season, and I was shocked, is Mackenzie.
Yeah, Mackenzie. I'm loving Mackenzie's game.
Mackenzie was on the block for 3 weeks straight. She had basically no life in the game. She had no friends, no alliance, no loyalties. And every week, I mean, not for nothing, I think she wins AI Arena 2 times. You can fact check me on that.
Yeah, she won. She won in the week to send Cedric and to send Tucker home. Like she's pulled off, and she was supposed to go home both those.
That's what I mean. In those weeks where she is supposed to go home, she wins AI Arena, which is the best use of the AI Arena ever. I'm high on the AI Arena this season. I
think they need to bring it back every season, not as AI, but like call it the Big Brother Arena. The BB Arena should be a mainstay, like the Veto is.
Yes, it is. It is because you know what it does, and we've talked about this. It's refreshing to the game, right? You need a plan A, a plan B, and a plan C. You can't just be like, all right, well, like I think that's why everybody was a little worried about this week, because this week with Chelsea, I mean, it was just Kimo and Angela, and everyone was like, well, it's going to be one of the two of them. Nobody's taking them off the block. We got lucky with the fact that we got a lot of drama, which is chef's kiss. But now with no AI Arena, right, we're down to 8, right? We need 5 more to go home. It may not be 5 straightforward votes, but by the time the veto is done, right, by the time the veto has been used or not used, we're going to know like an inkling of who's probably going home, especially with now how divided a lot of people are. But to get back to my main point, right, you have someone like Mackenzie who was so on the outs, and she has become she's become a threat. She can still win the game. There was like week 3, week 4, we were both kind of like, She doesn't have a lot of
Yeah.
win equity. She's
Yeah.
probably not staying very much like a lot longer.
Because she was also
Hopefully,
attached to Matt, and that was one
right,
of the things where Matt went out. Now her and Leah are on an island, and they're not doing much because Mackenzie wasn't actively doing much, and the
right,
people she was aligning with were the people who ended up on the wrong side of the votes. But as you said, the people who have been kind of down are the ones who rise up from the ashes this season.
right.
So it actually has worked for her benefit because she's working with the wrong people, but then those end up being the right people. You know
Which
what I mean?
now I'm very curious because same thing kind of goes for the same thing goes for T-Core, right? T-Core was one of those where in preseason we weren't like super high on her. We said like, oh, she'll probably make jury or she'll be like a really late she'll be a really late like right pre-merge, really late
I know
pre-jury boot.
Survivor terms
Um,
blending over.
and
Yeah.
she what her HOH was horrible. Her HOH did not go the way that she wanted it to, and it kind of blew up in her face because
Okay.
of it. But
Yeah.
even still, coming out of that situation, what I think is most impressive is that the people who always seem to have their like what they are the target in the scope somehow manage to like someone manages to sneeze to the right or to the left, and all of a sudden they are no longer being focused on. Right. So like T-Core, Mackenzie, even Leah. Leah, I think I would venture to say, if I'm being honest, probably a bigger threat than Quinn at the end. Maybe not overall right now, but based on her ability to like kind of
Yeah.
smooth her way over with people. Like if I'm looking at the difference between they had so many conversations this week about Leah versus Quinn,
Yeah.
and I forget who said it, but Chelsea's initial conversation where she was more pro putting up Leah instead of Quinn was the idea that Leah was much more vengeful and Quinn was going to just kind of like scrawl his way back to someone and like they could use him as a number. And Leah has more vengeance in her or something, some kind of conversation like that. I'd have to go back and look.
Yeah, go ahead.
Everybody was just looking more at Quinn's ability to win a comp, which
Well, I think that the question is the long-term versus the short-term game. And I think when you don't have the AI arena, you have only one chance to save yourself. And I think that benefits keeping Leah because all it takes is her to lose one veto and you can get
right,
her out whenever. Whereas Quinn, he can win HOH, he can win veto. Like Leah's won one veto and it was one where you had to build a puzzle in the dark, which is a great thing because it's showing that the comps are equitable this season where anyone can really win them. There's
right,
enough of a balance. I don't think we've seen a physical comp since the wall where it's all about your muscle. Like every other comp, even the one with Rubina like flying through the thing, like Joseph could have won that. Like that's the thing is like it's very equitable.
right,
And I think there's something to be said about that. But I also think with that, I think Quinn just can do more challenges well than Leah can. I think at least has been proven by the season so far. So I think it's one of those things where, you know what, let's get out someone who could win HOH next versus someone who still could win HOH next. I think Leah actually winning would be the most interesting outcome this week because I think she would maybe possibly go after T-Core and Chelsea, who are admittedly the two running the house. And we'll talk about that in a sec. I want to talk about a few things. I want to talk about whether Leah or Quinn was the right decision. We'll talk about that since we're already on that. But then I also want to talk about T-Core's HOH because I want to go back to what you said about that. And then also we can talk about going forward now where the dynamics are. The thing about Quinn versus Leah, since it's so fresh and recent, I think the thing is Quinn is harder to control and he is very free with information. If Leah is loyal, and like I think you saw this with Angela, if you're loyal with her and she's loyal with you, she's not going to try to sink your game. Like
right,
I think that's the thing. She can win you over in the end, but I also think this is a cast that respects the gameplay more. Where unless it's like the trio and one of them sitting in the end and the others get the rest of the jury for them, like we even heard with Joseph going out. And this is why I think Leah didn't make a bad move in saving Angela because here's the thing: Angela's going to vote for Leah at the end of Leah sitting there.
right,
Joseph said he was going to vote for Chelsea or one of these other players. He wasn't going to vote for Leah. As much as he likes her, he wouldn't vote for Leah because he
right,
wants to vote for the better player. So I think the risk is, I think, especially for Chelsea, she's looking at everyone. She says, if Quinn's sitting in the end there, despite making blunders and being annoying to some, I think enough people respect him and also respect the fact that he's this kid who's wanted to play for so long. He's going to have a great final speech if he gets there, akin to a Taylor Hale, where you could have that really passionate speech, no matter how bad your game is. We saw this with Jags was still a little forceful. I don't love Jag's final speech. I never have. But in comparison to Matt's, like he was owning a game. It was not the right game to own, and he did it in a demeaning way, but he was owning it. He still had passion. And I think that's what you're going to get from Quinn at the end. Leah, if she doesn't have the moves, she can be as nice as you want, but I don't know if she's going to sell those moves. So I think in the long term, maybe Leah's a nicer person that the jury might vote for, but Quinn, there's just such a risk that they're going to vote for him because he is the gamer. And I think in the short term, he's someone that if you could just get out of the board now, especially with the idea now there's two guys left. There's Cam and there's Chemo. Chemo has been a sitting duck. He's going in the next few weeks. So it's really a question of like, if we can get out Cam, then like this is a girls thing. Quinn is the only thing that could probably break that up because he also has Leah so close to him. And if Leah's not on board with the all girls thing, you know, she wouldn't get on board with Quinn still there. Now with Quinn gone, she's more likely to join an all girls thing if Mackenzie and T-Core and Rubino want to make something happen and flip it on Chelsea, get rid of Cam. And then Chelsea could come into that. So I think there's a lot of good leeway in the short term. We're keeping Leah over Quinn. But I wanted you to just respond on that, on Quinn and Leah. Because I do think in the short term, getting out Quinn was the better move for sure.
So my thing with Leah is, and again, this might be, I think this is actually probably more of a Mackenzie thing than it is anyone else. I do think, I agree with you. I think that T-Core, and we'll talk about this, I think T-Core and Chelsea are running the game. I think they're doing a damn good job. And the fact that I want to take credit for the fact that I had a great read on Chelsea in preseason.
You did.
Dylan said he didn't agree.
I just wasn't getting anything from her preseason game wise, but
she's so good. She's so good, and she surprises me every single week. I'm so impressed. One of the things that I want to highlight is that I actually don't think I think part of what makes Leah successful is that she's open to someone like Mackenzie. Quinn was never going to work with Mackenzie, right? Like, and I want to use this as like an opportunity to highlight like how good Mackenzie has been my 180 of the season. I thought she was just okay, if not like sort of bad. And then she has become, I mean, her OTEV win is so good. It's watching that episode. That's Big Brother at its best. Like that, like they're like, it's Tucker, and her being like, I brought you set, and then that whole rewind.
Because in order it went Tucker, Cedric, Tucker, but they edited it so that she was last because they go in order. So I thought that was even better because then for the edit, because we all know too, because we've heard on the feeds she won it in one round, and we're like, how does that happen? I didn't even realize it was that if you get it wrong, you're out. I thought it was just if you get it wrong, if everyone gets it wrong, the last person to get it wrong goes out or something. But well, no, everyone got eliminated. It wasn't that.
Well, no, that's what I mean. If everybody got it wrong, it would have been the last person. But only one person.
I see.
Right.
Okay.
So
if Mackenzie also brought Cedric, then they would have eliminated.
No, if she had brought Tucker, or if somebody else, or if like Angela had brought Cedric, the two of them would have stayed, and then they
But I see what you mean. If they all got it wrong, then it's just whoever was up.
What I think is so good, and it's something that Mackenzie has highlighted a lot, is her ability, like what she's looking for. Rather, she's like, this week, I'm working with Chelsea. This is how this is working this week, right? Whatever happens after that, I'm not sure yet. But I also might be incorrect, but I'm almost positive that on the feeds, there has been a lot of Leah stays safe this week. Also, I do partially think it's because of long-term game, but I also think it's partially because if Chelsea wants to use the veto and put Leah up, I actually think Mackenzie's probably less likely to do it. Mainly because Leah is a great number for Mackenzie, but that doesn't happen without Leah. Like, I think the underrated duo, they're not really a duo, but the underrated pairing that we'll probably see a la like June and Allison, I can imagine, not in like a hatred way, but like a we have to work together and really make it like not conspicuous, is Leah and Mackenzie can do so much damage. They're sort of the antithesis of like T-Core and Chelsea for me, right? Like where those are two very strong personalities that like do complement one another, and you kind of, but it's very out in the open and you kind of see it. Mackenzie and Leah are two opposite personalities who, when weighed down by partners who don't make any sense, they have to kind of find their way to each other. I think that this week they're finding their way to each other.
Yeah, which is funny because week one, they are each other's number one after Matt goes home. They're the ones crying in the bathroom together and saying, we're going to avenge you, Matt. We're going to get out Angela. Now look who's used the veto on Angela in 2 weeks in a row, Leah, then Mackenzie. I think that's hilarious. And it just shows how the game can switch so often. Leah was calling Quinn a creep a few weeks ago, and now she's saying tonight that she has a crush on him. So it's like really like showing that anything can happen in a matter of a few weeks, because that's just what it is when you're with the people and you don't have that outside connection. connection, you start to just get bored with who you're with and you start to turn.
Right.
I want to quickly go back to, we'll get back to T-Core and Chelsea in a second, the June Allison comparisons, but I want to go back to what you said about T-Core's HOH being bad. I think in the moment, the idea of two people in that Sixth Avenue, right? Was that what it was called? Sixth Avenue,
I
the
think
six
so.
people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it was like the friends plus Angela and Joseph. That's six. The fact that two of them were in the block at the end of the day, Angela and Tucker, a lot of people were saying T-Core's HOH was terrible. T-Core's HOH is bad because two of her allies are on the block. How do you let that happen? Because she put up Angela, she put up Tucker as pawns. Mackenzie wins the AI arena, and everyone's like, see, T-Core, that's why you don't nominate your allies. But here's what I'll say. Look what happened after Tucker went home. Who did Rubina go with? Where did Rubina go? Rubina, who would not have left Tucker's side. Let's be honest. Rubina loves Tucker. Who does Rubina go with? T-Core and Chemo. Now, who is the unstoppable force in the house? And who is still skating by despite being on the block 2 weeks in a row? Chemo. Because Chemo, T-Core, and Rubina are so tight. I think T-Core made a great move. I think she in retrospect, she might have wished that Tucker was still there. But here's the thing. If Tucker's still in the house, they're looking at that 4 as a big threat
Right.
because he's a big threat. If
Right.
Tucker's
Well,
not
and
there,
they're
they're not
there.
threatened. And they're not threatened by Rubina. They're not threatened by T-Core. And they're not threatened by Chemo to win comps because all of them have won one apiece. T-Core won a brain comp HOH. Chemo won the very first AI arena, which was a picture puzzle against Kenny and Matt, who were the first and third boots. And then Rubina won a challenge where she had to go through an obstacle course where being the tiniest person absolutely helps. And no one saw Chemo or Rubina's wins. So that you're looking at those three versus Cam, who won the slingshot veto.
Right.
Quinn, who was the second one on the wall. Leah, who won this big veto to take Angela off. Mackenzie just won OTEV by herself. I think that's the thing is getting out Tucker. Now they can still be together. They can bring in Rubina even closer than they were before. And they don't have the threat of Tucker looming over them to where they can skate by. We've seen that happen. Even this week, I think the reasonable move, honestly, as tough as Quinn is to beat in comps, I honestly think if you have a shot at the trio, take the shot at the trio.
Right. Well,
but
and that's
they're not. And I think that's a testament to the social game of Rubina and T-Core, especially. Chemo, a little less so. Chemo kind of hermits a little bit in the house. But the other two, like T-Core building bonds with Chelsea, Rubina this week in the feeds, they didn't show this on the episodes, but putting a lot of work in with Cam.
yeah.
I think that
He's
is
doing
huge
great.
because it's showing that they are getting by purely on social game when they are a trio, a self-proclaimed trio. Everyone just refers to them as the trio. And I think even Quinn and Leah, like, you're really threatened by this kind of fake showmance, not really kind of like outsiders. I honestly think the biggest threat would be that trio. And I'm surprised now they've let Chemo go by 2 weeks in a row because it's such an obvious threat. But that's
Right.
also what makes me feel so good about T-Gore's game, even more so than Chelsea's game, because I think Chelsea, at least, like Quinn picked up on it. Chelsea was the biggest threat. I also think that's partially why they went with Quinn over Leah because Quinn was clocking Chelsea's game. But all it takes is for Cam and Mackenzie to realize like Chelsea's
Right.
playing really well. And the trio now is a 3 in the midst of 8 with Angela and Leah being wild cards now.
Right.
Now Cam, Mackenzie, and Chelsea might become the trio, but on the other side. So I really think this is a very interesting dilemma. But I think that's why T-Core's HOH is great because in the moment you're losing Tucker, but it was honestly, I think, a blessing and a curse because the curse is obviously you lose a number, but the blessing is now you can solidify the numbers you have and you're not as big a threat because he's not part of your team anymore. It's like, you know, you're not going to pick on the guys if Tucker's not there. You're going to go for the bigger fish to fry, and that's not in your alliance. I think it's a great HOH in retrospect. I think at the time I would have said the same thing, but I think now it's shown, and I think that's just T-Core's ability is that she's been able to bounce back. And I think that's the thing. It's not about the moves you make because Quinn had a bad HOH with Cedric. He could have bounced back, but he didn't. He had a bad HOH with Joseph. T-Core, on the other hand, had a bad HOH, lost an ally, but has recovered perfectly fine and is now sitting in a trio where if one of the 3 wins this week, they're probably going to get out Leah, Mackenzie, or Cam because I don't think Chelsea's going home this week. And then, you know, they just have to make it 2 more votes and then they have the majority. Like, I think they're in a good spot, and it's because of that getting Tucker out and getting Rubina closer. I really think that's gonna help them in the long run.
So now here's our question, right? We're halfway through the season officially. Pretty much, no, we're halfway through, right? We have 8 people left. We started with 16.
Yeah.
Dylan, our original winner pick was the same. It was Rubina. At the halfway mark, right? We're in jury. We have our first member of the jury. We've seen how everything goes down in terms of Quinn getting evicted. What is your thought process on a potential winner at this point? Are you sticking with Rubina? Are you shifting a little bit? Are you stuck between 2 people? Where's your thought?
If Rubina wants to win this game, Rubina can win this game, and I think she's a likely winner. The only issue would be Rubina herself on the feeds, and this is also saying it to other people, so like we have to believe it with a little bit of a grain of salt. she wants T-Core to win. It's like the JT Steven thing in Survivor. It's like, no, like I want, or not, maybe
Right.
more so JT and Taj, but either way, it's like I want you to win because you're so great. Like you saw how emotional they got when T-Core won that HOH. They were crying. Even Tucker was crying. And I think it shows they love T-Core so much. Here's the thing though. All it takes is Leah. And that's why I think Leah is the most interesting HOH this week, because I think Leah puts up Chelsea and T-Core and says, stop getting comfortable. Here you go.
Right.
But I think the thing is, if T-Core goes this week and Rubina's not playing the game for T-Core, I think Rubina can win because I think they like her more than they like Chemo, and I think
Right.
she's more likely to skate by because she's not a challenge threat. I think Rubina, the only thing stopping herself is herself. And I think I would stick with that winner pick, but I think she's so gung-ho on T-Core. The only thing I could see is also when you get to the end, what if it's Angela, Rubina, and T-Core? What if Angela wins and takes Rubina over T-Core? Someone else cuts T-Core and brings
Right.
Rubina. I think Angela is the key to this because I think Angela, now it becomes a question of, is she actually going to give jury votes if they bring her to the end? Or is she someone that they want to Derek F to the end, who is
Right.
in all the strategy, but like no one's going to respect him enough to give him the win? That becomes a big question because if everyone says Angela's a goat, then you want to get Angela under your wing. And I think that's where Rubina can win. But if everyone's still thinking Angela can get votes, and can she get votes, Zach? Do you think Angela could legitimately get a vote to win at this point?
A vote, yes. I definitely
Okay.
think she gets a vote from someone. I think
Mm-hmm.
there's a world where Quinn votes for her. I think there's a world where potentially like Aaliyah votes for her. I think there's a world where
Yeah, I mean, Angela didn't vote Quinn out tonight, and I think
that
that's big. I think
and,
Quinn respects that.
and so that's what I mean. Is that like I think there's a world. Do I think she gets enough votes to win? It's really going to depend on what she does, right? So one of the things that, and I've been scrolling and keeping up on Twitter at the same time. One of the things that they didn't highlight this week in that episode is that Angela openly said that she wants an alliance with Leah, Mackenzie, and Chelsea, which just so happens to be threat number 1, threat number 3, and threat number 4, right? So the likelihood of threats 1, 3, and 4 all going to the end and sitting against her, probably not very high, right? So like what you are looking at is there is a high potential that if Angela is making the right moves, if she's making the right calls, and then what we also have to remember, and I'll give her more credit, I'm not really an Angela lover. I know that that's controversial. It's mainly just because I don't find I think I just don't find her as interesting as everybody else does. Not that I think she's not great TV. I think I'm just tired of the same thing every week. Where
And
like
she's
with
not playing a
Marcus,
game that is pleasing to watch. It is
right.
stressful, you know.
And the thing is, like, if it nets her a win, then like more power to her, right? It's not like a Gabler situation where I was like, this is aggravating. If Angela were to win against someone like a Chemo or someone like I'm trying to even think of who, or even like a Cam, like if it was Angela and Cam in the end and Angela won, I think that would be an exciting ending. Like a very interesting ending, because what we also have to remember is that Angela is a realtor, and what she may not be great at is, staying out of the drama and giving the tea, but what she is great at is selling something and selling herself. She sold herself this week. She sold herself.
Well, that's the thing.
All she had to say was, these people are aligning and I'm cooked. Like I'm walking out on Thursday. And that was enough for Mackenzie and Chelsea to be like, you know what? But do I think that she has a shot at winning? I think she's got like a 30-40% chance right now.
She's got the smallest chance, I think. And here's the thing. I think at this point they should be looking at bringing her to the end, because even if she makes, like, if she has another HOH and makes a huge move, then like we could start thinking of her as a threat. But I still think everyone thinks she's the easy beat. It's just, can we deal with the chaos to bring her there?
Well,
but I do think there is a world where she could win based on the moves she's already made. The problem is, I don't think she knows how good she's playing. I think she's playing better than she thinks she is. I really
agree.
think. I don't think she thought that move to take her off the block was her doing. I think she thought Mackenzie and her bond was the reason she got taken off. No, she got taken off the block because she spread misinformation to Chelsea in a strategic move, and it worked. But the thing is, she was thinking it was all Mackenzie and her bond. But if she can learn that was her move and own moves like that, she can do well. The problem is, I think she's too emotionally invested, and she's honestly going to pitch friendship over moves, and I just don't think she knows what her game is to pitch. When she has a game, she has a good game.
Angela is an emotional player, not a strategic player, right? Which, in her emotion, she finds strategy, but she doesn't know that she's finding strategy. Like, it's sort of like, how much more obvious can it be until it like legitimately hits her in the face? Somebody would have to tell her. But the problem is, if anybody tells her, I think she implodes, right? Like the minute someone acknowledges the kind of good game that she's playing, you know, she's got these great moments on TV where she's like, I'm this old and I got my ass up on that, you know, on that OTEVs, like I climbed that waterfall, like I am ready. And then they have moments where it's like, and you got the answer wrong. Like she, at every moment, and I don't, you know, they're editing in real time. It's not like, you know,
Right. So we're not looking into a winner's edit as well, which also I think is harder to assess because now we're seeing all of Angela's blunders, but if she goes on to win, we would see the blunders nonetheless. It's not like Survivor.
And the other problem is I don't know in the event of an Angela HOH, I don't know who goes up. I don't know, because does Chelsea go up because she put her up, so it only makes sense. But the problem is then Angela is too emotional. I think, again, it might be too emotional of a player to put Chelsea up when she was so, you know, adamant when she heard her plea. And then Mackenzie's not going up, but Mackenzie is one of the best people in the house right now. Why are you not going to do that? She maybe puts up T-Core and Chemo, which I think is like an obvious move. And I do think that probably benefits her because, again, you put up T-Core and Chemo. If one of them comes off, you put up Rubina and you let the house decide. Yeah. But I don't know if she does that. Like, again,
she did say on the episode tonight and on the feeds that if she survives, her target is Rubina. That's like her target, because I think she just knows, because of what happened with Tucker, that there's just no way Rubina is going to work with her type deal. But here, I think what she would do is either put up two people in the trio, which she should do. I could also see a world where she puts up Cams because she doesn't have a connection. She's not putting up Chelsea and Mackenzie after the veto was saved on her. I think she would. No. And then she wouldn't put up Leah. So I think it's really going to be the trio and Cam. Is she going to do Cam and a member of the trio, or will she listen to Mackenzie and Chelsea and just put up two of the trio? I would assume two of the trio would go up, and it would probably be Chemo and Rubina would be my guess.
My other thing too is, and this is like, again, we've seen a lot of different types of wins. What I will say, and this is sort of like in my winner pick scenario, I always hate to like say a winner pick because I always think I'm going to curse them because I have such bad luck with winner picks. I agree with you that I think that if Rubina wants to win this game, Rubina wins this game, right? If she has the drive to make the decision and do it, she'll win. And because she's so well hidden, the only person looking at her is Angela. But the problem with Angela looking at someone is that, like, everyone's kind of like, yeah, okay. Right. Like they're not taking it seriously.
Yeah. They would still vote out Chemo over her, and I think they would vote out T-Core over her too. Yeah.
So my thought right now, between a winner, it would be wonderful to see Rubina win. I would be higher on that thought process if T-Core doesn't happen to go out this week or next week. Right now, where I'm sitting, I'm smack dab 50-50 between Chelsea and Mackenzie. I think
Chelsea and Mackenzie. Okay.
I think Mackenzie, I'm gonna say it. I'm gonna do it. I can't believe I'm gonna do it. I think Mackenzie has the best shot at winning the game right now. She's got the best story.
Okay.
Overall best story. I think week one, she's isolated, completely ostracized due to a 1 week connection with one person, completely falls out with everyone in the house, ends up as a safe nominee and potential vote out for like 3 weeks, is able to fully integrate herself back in the house and take the target off of her back, ends up winning a veto, 1 against 1 to 5, right? Like she wins automatically based on her knowledge and social abilities in the game. She makes the decision to help assist take out, probably at this point in the game, the biggest threat to anybody to win, right? Quinn's probably the overall biggest, we'll say, male threat to win the game. Mackenzie gets up there and she speaks. She's got Leah. And this is assuming that it's not Leah or Chelsea up there with her.
Yeah, let's just assume it's Angela if everyone's smart enough to take her with her, or it's like a Chemo or Rubina or something.
She's got Leah, she's got Chelsea, she's got probably Rubina in terms of like someone who might be willing to like listen, like.
If someone from the trios against her, though, I think they're getting those 2 votes. So it really would have to be like she would have to be sitting next to Cam or Angela. Right. If she's sitting next to Chemo or T-Core, Rubina's voting the other person.
But even with those 2 votes, right, I still think like she probably nets Quinn's vote because she has the biggest hand in his downfall. He takes by her making the decision to take, and I know she's like, I don't. And what I like about her is that. Sorry, I'm getting over a cough and it's tickling my throat. What I like about Mackenzie is that Mackenzie knows how to acknowledge that she's having a hand in something, but she will not be seen as the decision maker, right? So, for example, right, she was just asked to put down. She was asked to take off Angela. Like
Yeah.
I was asked, but she knew going into taking down Angela what was going to happen.
Right.
We're going
But
to
she
take
played
out
it off. She played it off like it was Chelsea's decision, so Quinn
right.
wouldn't feel slighted by her. He would feel slighted by Chelsea.
And that I
That was
think
a great move.
I think we said like preseason, she gave off sort of like Riley vibes or somebody else too. I think like Haley, Big Brother, 20. She's exceeded them. I mean, obviously Riley, but I think even with Haley, like Haley was clung to one person for so much of that game and was absolutely not willing to go against her people. Mackenzie has no person, therefore everyone's an option and an opportunity, and she follows it, and I love it. It's I enjoy watching Mackenzie more than I enjoy watching Angela, only because I kind of know Angela's gimmick already. Like I think we all kind of know it, so we know what to expect. I don't know what to expect with Mackenzie, and she continues to surprise me. I think nobody's looking at her anymore. Everybody's on Chelsea and T-Core. That's 2 weeks of a vote, right? That gets you from 8 to 6. We're going to go into a double. She does so well under pressure.
Oh, did they announce a double? I didn't watch the.
I don't know if they actually.
It has to be coming soon, right? I would assume it would be from. If not next week, it's got to be 7 to 5, right? They're not going to do it from 6 to 4.
They announced a schedule. This is common knowledge. They announced the October schedule, and there's 1 2-hour live eviction episode. Most people think that's the double, but there's also a possibility where I don't know. I have to double check. I don't think there's a Wednesday episode, like a veto episode, so they might have to double up on veto and live.
Even then, if 2 hours, you can do a veto and a double, because the double is usually done in an hour. Yeah,
that's what I mean, right? So I think we're looking at a double probably around 6, 6 or 5. That no, it'll probably take them down from 6 to 4, and then bring us into
so Tiffany and Chada kind of double eviction.
Yeah, so
I hate that.
Well, and
this is too. There's because like, what if it's like the trio versus the trio? Like, what if they just get out Angela and Leah next? Like, because they're the floating. Then you've got the trio, because it's a bit of a trio forming with like Cam, Chelsea, and Mackenzie. It gets closer and closer by the day, especially because Leah ostracized herself a bit with the Quinn thing, and now Angela voting Quinn. Like, they're the two easy people to put up if the trio gets power. It doesn't want to go against like Chelsea. So like if it is trio versus trio, and that's when the double comes, like that would be sad, because like that's. I want the double to happen like a week before that. Like, but again, this season's been delivering that. I think it'll deliver either way. But I just hope that it doesn't, because that was the whole thing about the cookout. They finally got to the cookout, and then it was like double. And it's like, no, like this is the time we want to see no doubles. We want to see what happens when it's an elongated week and they can actually strategize. But yeah, I'm very excited to see the prospect of a double with this group. So let's look at like who everyone would target now. So like if the trio wins, I think their smart move is to put up Angela and Leah with the potential of a backdoor for Chelsea or even for Cam, because I think right now everyone I think is clocked Chelsea, and that's why I think T-Core is still. So you asked me if I'm rooting for Rubina. So I'm rooting for Rubina for the sake of wanting to go 3 for 3 on these predictions. But I do think Rubina is still playing T-Core's game, and until she's willing to kind of say no to that, or if someone else can cut T-Core and she can finally play her own game, I don't think that's going to happen. I really do think T-Core right now is still the one to beat, because she's just so well protected. Because I think they're always going to go for chemo first of that 3, because I think also the bond with Chelsea is really T-Core's ceiling.
Wait. What? Sorry, we're getting live. Feeds are back. I'm trying to see who. Keep talking. Keep talking.
Is there an HOH? I don't think they played an HOH yet, though, right?
They definitely have, I think.
What, really? Already?
Appeared again.
In an hour and 22? Okay, let me know if any feeds come back. But my whole point was that I think T-Core right now is so well protected, because I think she has 2 people willing to fall on the sword for her. And I think other people think that Chemo and Rubina are bigger jury threats. And I think a lot of that is because T-Core has done the work in getting Chelsea on board. I think Chelsea and T-Core's bond is the key. And I want to go back to what you said about June and Allison. I think this is closer to June and Allison, because I think there's a mutual respect. They love one another, but they also know, I think, that they need to take each other out at some point. But T-Core's got her own people that aren't Chelsea's people. Chelsea's not working with Chemo and Rubina, and Chelsea has Cam and Mackenzie that T-Core's not really working with, but they're working with each other to the point where they're keeping each other safe, and that's how they're able to skate by despite being big threats, is because if anyone on Chelsea's side has power, they're going to go after Chemo and Rubina. They're not going to go after T-Core, because Chelsea won't let them, and vice versa. If the trio's in power, they're not going to go after Chelsea. They'll go after Cam or Mackenzie first. I think this is the ideal strategy for the 2 of them, because they know they could probably beat anyone else. What their strategy should be is, let's take each other's sides out. If your side wins, we could take out someone from my side. If my side wins, we'll take out someone on your side, trickle it down. And then when it's me, you, Angela, and Leah, then it's all every man for themselves. And it's like, then you can kind of, it's fighting over who can get which pawn and which goat.
Right.
I think that would be the best strategy for both of them, because at this point, I think if Tigor goes to the end with the trio, the risk is that, let's say, all it takes is one wild Final Four HOH from like
Right.
Mackenzie or Cam, whoever's fourth place, to like flip it on T-Core, and then like it's an easy Rubino win, let's say.
Right.
But then like if it's Chelsea and her other guys, like Chelsea going to the end with Cam and Mackenzie is risky, because I think Cam and Mackenzie at this point, I think Mackenzie would choose Cam, I think Cam would choose Chelsea, but Mackenzie's the best of those three in comps. So Chelsea could be putting risk going all the way to the end with Mackenzie. So I think there's a lot of different avenues that can happen. I think the best strategy right now would be trying to get the other trio whittled down as much as possible, while also keeping Angela and Leah in your back pocket. Because if you go after Angela or Leah this week, I think it's a waste. Because at this point, I really don't see either of them winning a jury vote unless they're against each other. I know you said Angela could get a vote. At this point, I still don't know who that vote comes from, unless it's Leah returning any sort of favor. But Leah's the one who gave Angela the vote. Angela should be returning the favor to Leah, not vice versa. I honestly, right now, I think Angela is the easy person to take to the end to beat in a 0 vote landslide. And I love Angela. I'm rooting for Angela. She's the person I want to win if I had to root for someone, because I do love Angela and I love what she's bringing to the game, and I think it's such a unique story. But I do think she's not going to be able to sell what her story is. If she can get up there and say, listen, I made these moves that looked emotional, but I was calculated behind every single one of them. I masterminded your demise and your demise. I took out every person who targeted me. It's like the Jam Jam thing of everyone who mentioned my name, I took them out. Kenny, Matt, Lisa, Tucker, Joseph, Quinn. And if she can sell that, but the problem is I don't think she's going to. I think she's going to say, this is so big for a woman my age to be here, and you guys have a chance. That's what she's going to push, and that's why I think she's not going to get those votes. I don't think she gets a vote at the end. I don't think she gets a vote at the end unless she can pull the whole, if you targeted me, I took you out. If she can pull that, she could win. But if she's going to go with the emotional, I'm just so happy to be here, it means so much, she's not going to get a vote. And I think that's going to be the big kicker.
Here's the thing, too, is that, and I think that this is important, and it really is going to come down to the fact that, like, she's also going to have to figure out if her I don't know if it's her ego per se. I think that's the wrong way of phrasing it. But, like, someone compared her to Taylor, right? Like, Chelsea compared her to Taylor Hale.
Yeah. I think it was a way to, like, boost up her spirits. I don't think it's the same game necessarily, but we saw
the thing is,
she ate the chips.
But the thing is, I don't think she fully believes that. And the thing that made Taylor's game so impressive was the fact that, like, that was her claim, right? Like, you sat next to me, you left, like that, and she knew how to spin that in a way that made her not only look good, but made her look absolutely fantastic. And that's why so many people voted. So, like, I don't think Angela's looking at herself. We've said this already, right? Like, Angela's not looking at herself as threatening. She's looking at herself as put upon. And I think that that's going to be her downfall, is that, like, oh, I just keep getting put up on the block. I just keep getting put up on the block. Why aren't people looking, like, for what I'm actually, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's not like they're actively trying to do or think about something different there, or she's not trying to think differently, and that I think is gonna probably end up being her downfall.
Yeah. So looking at the hierarchy of this season, like, this is where I'm thinking everyone's at. I think Angela right now doesn't get a vote unless she can really find that game like Taylor did it and actually sell it and make another. There's still 8 people left. She can make another big move or two. Like, she has a potential. But I think right now, Angela loses to almost everyone. I think Leah beats Angela but loses to everyone else. And then I think Chemo's on the next tier. Chemo and Rubina, I guess. You know what? I would put Rubina above Cam and Mackenzie, only because I think if it's in the end, I think people just like Rubina more than they like Cam and Mackenzie. And then I think above that is T-Core than Chelsea. I still think Chelsea's the biggest threat to win if she gets there. The only thing is, I think they've all clocked that Chelsea's a big threat. I think they've kind of clocked that the trio's a big threat, but not singularly T-Core. So I still think T-Core has more longevity than Chelsea. So I'm going to say right now, I think T-Core is going to win, because I really have been so impressed with her game. The fact that she hasn't been nominated yet, and it's because everyone just likes her, that's the best game. It's not like Leo where no one's threatened by her. They're probably threatened by T-Core, but they just like her enough that they don't want to put her on the block. They were crying when she won. Like, I think that's huge. And I think she surrounded herself with people who are bigger threats. Chemo's always going to be the pawn piece. Rubina is willing to put her game on the line for her. And she has Chelsea as a number. Chelsea doesn't want to get rid of her. And then the second Chelsea's ready to get rid of her, Chelsea can win the game, but she won't. And I think that's the thing is, and that's admirable. I love that, like, these black women are looking out for one another, but also in doing so, Chelsea's keeping around a big threat. And I think T-Core would cut Chelsea before Chelsea cuts T-Core. So I'm really interested to see how this shapes up. And then there's the big factor that no one's mentioned yet. We haven't really mentioned him at all, but Cam, who is really, I think, a sneaky pick to potentially pull it out, only because we've seen how these end game comps work on normal seasons. If it is following in line, there's a chance he could win a lot of them. And Chelsea, again, does not want to cut him, and I think a lot of other people would be willing to, but if Chelsea has enough pull, he's not going to get cut. And I don't understand why. And I do think we've seen, even with him and McKenzie, like, he's likable. People love him. We saw that segment with the tattoos. Like, people like this guy. I think America's also starting to come around to him too. Everyone was saying he's boring, he's not doing anything, but now he's like one of the most beloved people on the cast, just because people think he's the most genuine. Like, he's not going for the big frills and thrills and big moments, but he's just being an earnest and endearing guy. And like, the shout out to all my boys or my dogs in the crib has become like a big Twitter meme, because every time he evicts someone, he says it, people are liking him. And I really do think now that Tucker's gone, I think it opens up the room for like this other kind of like more conventional, big, brawny guy to win. I think he has a shot, but I just think they won't let him get it that far. And he has done so many, like, there's been so many times where he just kind of left out of the plan. Even though he's in the alliance, he's left out of the plan, where I don't know how much win equity he would have. But again, if he sits next to Leah, Leah, Angela, Chemo, maybe Rubina, I think he could win. Even Mackenzie, I think he could win. So I really do think there's a chance Cam can pull it out. It's really going to be whoever makes the move against Chelsea or T-Core will win. And if it's one of the own trio taking out T-Core, I think they win handily. If Rubina's willing to cut T-Core, that's huge. And I think same thing. If Mackenzie or if Cam is willing to cut Chelsea, especially if it's at the end, if it's a Cody Calafiore, Nicole Franklin thing,
that would be so good.
Where it's Mackenzie, Chelsea, and Cam wins and cuts Chelsea, I think Cam could win. So I think there's a path for everyone except probably Leah and Angela, and the only chance Leah has is against Angela. That's where I'm at right now, because I still think Chemo's well liked enough where he could beat Leah and Angela. But I think those three are kind of batting, they're striking out more than they're getting on base. Any other thoughts on the end game right now? Like, who else you're looking at? You said Mackenzie's now your winner pick, but like, I mean, we're still both looking at Chelsea. Yeah. But I think at this point, the biggest threat always gets cut at the end, unless you're Cody. Like, I just feel like we've been seeing with like Tiffany, and even last season with Suri. Like, at some point you're gonna cut him off, and like, it usually ends up being the person who won a lot of comps at the end, had a little momentum. They like the Jags, if you will, even like Steve with Vanessa, like that kind of player might rise above the ash, and that's where I think your Mackenzie pick could happen.
Yeah,
but, you feeling good about anyone else though in terms of like serious, legitimate winner contention? Are you considering T-Core?
Yeah, I mean, I'm considering T-Core. I just haven't seen.
What's up, Haley?
I'm waiting. Haley Keener. Now I've lost my train of thought.
Sorry. Any other winner considerations?
No, I think T-Core could be great. I'm curious what happens with T-Core in a final speech, right? Like, it's one of those things where everyone's good until they speak in front of a jury, and then once you're in front of the jury, like, I think that most times people go in. I think that people go in with their mind kind of made up. Again, if it's like T-Core versus Angela, it's gonna be T-Core. If it's T-Core versus Chemo, it's gonna be T-Core. It's a matter of like, if it's T-Core versus Mackenzie, yeah, she's got the votes from Rubina and Chemo, but it really then becomes like what's everyone else thinking, right? Like, how had the game played out, right? Again, if she's up against Leah, she probably wins. I do think it's going to come down to who she's there with. And if everyone is smart enough to just bring Angela along to the end with them, or Leah to the end with them, because they're not threatening enough right now, they can only become threatening. But what I will say is I do think that this week is the turning point, right? Like, if Chelsea makes it past this week and nobody takes her out, and she's able to just maybe even potentially like trade off HOHs with people, I mean, she's probably your winner in the end, which I would not be mad about. I think she was the sneakiest game, right? Like, her first week was kind of like, wow, I'm here. And now she's strategic. She's got a good mind for what's going on. I think her biggest downfall is that where she thinks she's playing kind of quietly, she's actually playing a little bit too loud and out in front, and people are seeing
which is also because of what Mackenzie did, where she's like, listen, I'm using the veto, Chelsea's gonna make her move, right. and now Leah's pissed. Like, I think if Leah wins HOH this week, it's the most interesting week ever, because we're gonna probably see Chelsea and T-Core on the block. What happens when you put them on the block, the two biggest threats together, and how does that change the game?
And the thing is, in that regard too, like, Chelsea's a big threat, and yes, people are going to know that, but she's also a great competition. She's a great competitor, right? Like I think she has the most overall wins right now. Maybe
Of everyone left, I want to say it's either Mackenzie or
her or
Chelsea. Let
Mackenzie,
me look. So,
but
let's just go through real quick. Angela has 2 wins, the 2 HOHs. Leah has just the 1 win. Chemo just has the 1 win. Rubina just has the 1 win. Chelsea has an HOH, a AI Arena, and another HOH. So
another
that's
HOH.
3. Cam has just his veto. Mackenzie has a veto. 2 AI arenas, and then she also kind of had that America's veto, so she had a power. So she
That's
won her power. She won the challenge to get the power, though. So,
but
Mackenzie's leading right now with comps with 4 to Chelsea's 3, but the first comp of Mackenzie's was that power comp, so it wasn't like an HOH or veto or AI. But
and so like that's my thing, right? Is that it's
Chelsea
only
can
going
win, yeah.
Like Chelsea can win out from here. There's a world where it happens. The beauty of Big Brother is like she won't be safe this week. We know that, and if it's anyone that's not Mackenzie or Cam, she's probably the likelihood to go up on the block. At least she should be. Mackenzie, Cam, or T-Core. I think in everyone else's mind, it should be Chelsea with somebody else. Again, I think at this point, you just keep putting someone up next to Angela. She's sort of the Victoria of it all, right? Like, why wouldn't you? She's either going to come down and you can do, bless you, she's either going to come down and you're going to get to do something else that's different and maybe backdoor someone, or she stays on the block and goes up against, someone else, and they're going to vote whoever is sitting next to her out. I can't imagine
that's my worry, though. My worry is that they're still like, this is a week we get out Angela. Because I think they're just, it's one of those things, I know you didn't watch this season, but it's like Philippines with Abby Maria. It was like one of these people that's a very clear person that you're going to steamroll in the end. But it's at the point where you just cannot put up with them that you need to get them out. Now, here's the thing. I think Angela's more likable. I think the show is showing us the most dramatic moments. I think she's more likable than we are all led to believe. I love Angela. But I do think it's one of those things where eventually it could just be one of those things where they snipe her out because it's the easy vote. But right now you don't need the easy votes. Like I'm saying, like taking her to the end would be so smart. And I think same with Leah. Like right now, I think next week, if anyone outside of Leah or Angela wins, I think they're putting up Leah and Angela. And that's the stupidest thing because or if it's Cam or Mackenzie, they're probably doing the same thing as last week. They're doing Chemo and Angela. And I just think if it keeps being Chemo and Angela, like I think eventually they got to start taking each other out. So I think the most interesting thing would be an Angela or Leah. If Angela wins HOH this week, I think it's
God, that'd be wild.
It'd be wild. It'd be so cool. It'd be so crazy. I think Leah as well. I think Leah would take the shot at the big guys. I think Angela would go after Rubina and Chemo, which is not as exciting as like T-Core and Chelsea. Obviously, also if you put T-Core and Chelsea on the block together, there is also that kind of ickiness of like you're putting the 2 black women on the block. But I think because the casting is so diverse nowadays, it's like I don't even think they're thinking along that lines, which is nice. Like it's nice that they're kind of just looking at gameplay. But that has also kept T-Core and Chelsea safe with one another because they have that bond over that. So, and I think that's also helping Cam and Chelsea's bond as well. Now, last little factor of this. Cam and Mackenzie, do you think there's any world where Chelsea would try to cut Mackenzie because she doesn't like the potential budding showmance with Mackenzie and Cam? Or do you think this is not really a showmance and she's just in over her head a little bit? Or do you think it's one of those things she doesn't matter and she's going to just ride it out, challenger style, and be the Mike Feist to their Josh O'Connor and Zendaya, if you will?
I don't know if I think that there's like any Chelsea's a good enough player that if she really does pull something out that's kind of like, I don't know, like if she decides that she wants to actively, I think it would behoove her to get rid of Mackenzie, if I'm being honest. Yeah, you have a budding showmance potentially between her and Cam, but like you get rid of Mackenzie or Cam, you've now fired the shot to get rid of someone potentially as big of a threat or a little bit less than yourself, which opens up that you've only lessened your own number, right? At the very least, it probably serves, and Chelsea's enough of a super fan to know that, like, if you're getting to the end, right? Like, if, let's say it's Mackenzie, Cam, and Chelsea in the final 3, what a crazy final 3, right? In the final 3, Chelsea's probably winning one of those competitions. I would say, like, there's a pretty even field between them all, but Chelsea has enough prowess and enough luck that I think she probably beats it. She wins at least one. And then I would venture to guess, is probably at this point, again, as a super fan, she knows what that style of competition. I think this is where being a super fan does have
It's
a
perfect.
benefit because
Yeah.
you know the styles of the final three competitions. Maybe she won't outlast Cam in an endurance, but like I'm almost positive she outlasted him on the wall.
Uh,
Like,
yeah, I think
can't remember.
no, I think Chelsea was off earlier than Cam. I think
Uh,
Chelsea was off pretty early, but honestly, Mackenzie would probably if that's your final 3 you're posing, I think Mackenzie wins the endurance. I think Mackenzie wins
so
endurance, Chelsea wins the part 2, and then it
and then
becomes
I think she probably wins part
Chelsea
three. So
probably wins part 3, yeah.
she's in control of the end of the game, and I think that that's great because again, she has a lot to do with she has a lot to do with every single thing that they do, right? Pulling Cam over from Leah to make him a part of her side is a monumental move that gets rid of Quinn, right? Pulling utilizing Mackenzie in the week of her second HOH to, ask her to use the veto to take off Angela and, use it to take out Quinn, effectively altering the altering the course of the season. Because what I will say is I think this is the turning point in the season, right? We are at 8. Normally our turning point happens so much earlier, I feel like, because they get out the big threat, but there were so many threats. No one was here to not play, and if anyone was, Kenny and Lisa weren't gonna make it far. They went out in the first 2 weeks, right? I'm almost more interested to see like what happens if Matt's still here, right? Like Matt did have a little bit more of a prowess to someone like Kenny or Lisa. So like if he doesn't go home that first week and Kenny goes home, like what's second week like? You know what I mean?
You
So
could potentially have a Jackson Holly thing where it's just Matt and Mackenzie winning a bunch of
right,
comps, and then we don't get that because that was what was so unique about Tucker and Rubina's showmance is that like Rubina wasn't winning a lot of comps, and Tucker was just such an oddball that it didn't feel like your typical showmance that just dominates in
right.
the way that like Cody and Jessica, which they didn't dominate, but that's the last time we'll bring them up on this podcast. But like just that's the only power couple I can think of because they went on to do Amazing Race. But like players like that though, where it's like the
This
big
is before we
strong
knew.
guy. But that's the thing is like I just don't know, like that was what's so refreshing about that showmance, which is why I'm glad. And it's been funny because like it really does feel like Angela's like the showmance killer, or Chelsea's the showmance killer because she likes to target the showmances. But I do think that's refreshing because I like when it's not a showmance running the whole game. I think it was
Yes.
cool that like when Tucker and Rubina came out to the rest of the house, they sniped out Tucker. When Quinn and Leah first started like hitting it off, talking about kissing one another, boom, Quinn's out. So it's like it's really interesting. And if this ends up being a Mackenzie Cam, if they brew on that longer, remember showmances can start late. We saw Monty and Taylor,
Right.
but I do think yeah, right. I think if that were to happen, I could see Chelsea taking the shot and maybe betraying Cam and then posing it as an all girls thing. That's another question. Do you think they would go with the all girls thing? Let's say like Leo wins HOH. Do you think there's a way they spin it like let's just use this opportunity to get rid of Cam? He's good in challenges. Next week we can
No,
easily snipe out. No.
I think Leah's on a mission. I don't think so. I think she's not being listen, girl had are we officially back? Are we officially back? Sorry, they
Okay.
keep going back and forth between like old feeds and new feeds.
Well, let's talk about who we think each person would target. So Leah, you're saying, yeah, she's on a mission. She would probably go after Chelsea and Mackenzie, right? and maybe like T.
I think Chelsea and even I think probably Chelsea and maybe Chelsea and Cam, right? Like Chelsea and Cam. I don't know.
Why not Mackenzie though? Because Mackenzie's the one who used the veto on Angela. Oh, I guess because she's close enough with Mackenzie. I keep forgetting they're still tight. Even though Mackenzie was a hand at getting Quinn out, she was a hand at getting. That's what's so interesting is like they all make mistakes and get their allies out. So you can't even say like you betrayed me, so you're going to the block because everyone's betrayed each other. So that's what's so funny. Like Leah betrayed Joseph by risking his elimination. He went home and like she didn't intentionally try to send him home, but it's like how could she go around and blame Mackenzie for doing the same thing to Quinn when Mackenzie didn't want Quinn there? So yeah, I think Leah would target either Cam and Chelsea or Chelsea and T-Core as like you guys haven't, because like the whole thing is that also they haven't hit the block. I mean, Chelsea hit the block with Brooklyn, but it was very much a last minute because they didn't want Quinn up there because they thought Quinn would go home next to Brooklyn. So they risked it and put Chelsea in the AI arena with Brooklyn, and Chelsea ended up winning it. But Chelsea's never sat there on eviction night. T-Core's never sit there on eviction night. I could see that happening. Angela, it sounds like it's Rubina, so she would probably go Rubina and Chemo because also she voted Chemo out twice now in a week in a row. So I think it's an easy Chemo, and then she would probably put up Rubina. If any of the trio win, I guess they're probably going after like Angela and Leah with a potential backdoor.
Probably. I don't think Leah. I think. Are we talking Tria, Chemo, T-Core?
Yeah, like the trio that they referred to in the show.
I don't think they're going. I don't
Rubina,
think they're
Tikor,
going for
Kimo.
Leah. I think they're probably. I mean, Quinn goes up because Angela thinks that they're in cahoots. So I think they, instead of putting up Leah, they probably put up like Mackenzie or Chelsea, something like that. I think if Chemo or Rubino win, they put up Chelsea. I think if Tikor wins, she puts up Mackenzie.
The only thing is that the only 2 votes to keep Quinn and vote out Chemo were Angela and Leah. So I could see a world where, because they voted out Chemo says, like, if Chemo wins, he has the easy.
Yeah.
I think that's the easy route. Just say you 2 voted to evict me. But again, I could see a backdoor potential for like a Chelsea
Right.
or a Cam.
I think for me, what I don't want to see though, and this is like, again, I'm not playing, but it's one of those things, right? I don't want to see an easy, like, it shouldn't be easy at this point, because again, especially for like Chemo and Rubina, not so much for Tikor. I think she'll have an easier time with things, but or convincing people to hand her a vote in the end. Especially for Tikor or for Rubina and Chemo, they need moves. So putting up the people who, like, yeah, Leah and Angela didn't vote for Quinn, or like didn't vote for voted for Chemo.
Voted for Chemo to keep Quinn.
But why would they? You know what I mean? Like, Chemo doesn't offer anything to their game more than Quinn does, and he knows that, and they know that. So I think at the very least, Chemo probably doesn't, like, don't get rid of it. Put up Angela for sure, because Angela is the one who led to one of your demises. Because again, like, if Angela stays on the block, she doesn't go home over Chemo, but Chemo has no reason to think that she doesn't. Like, you know, he doesn't have any reason.
Well, because originally at the start of the week she was the target, and then Mackenzie's the one. Mackenzie and Quinn changed the target to Chemo, but then after the veto, they changed the target to Quinn. So, yeah, honestly, good thinking too, because I think that's the thing I was impressed with Quinn this week the most. And I know he's gone, but we'll talk about him. We'll get to our ratings in just a sec. But I think Quinn really kind of, it clicked for him who was running the house this week. He saw Chelsea's running things, and I think we need to clock the trio. The trio is a powerful force. So they were clocking. They were like, we can't go after Angela this week. We have to go after the trio and split them up. But then once he realized things were moving a certain way, he was like, Chelsea has pull. And I think that's why you get out Quinn now, because I think he's going to clock it. I think 100%. At the end, he's going to clock it too. So I think Chelsea's, got out the right person for her game. The question is, did Mackenzie and Cam, not Cam, he didn't have anything to do with it, but did Mackenzie? And I think that's going to be the big question now is like, did Mackenzie make the right move, or should she have broken up the trio? Because if the trio wins, I do still think there's a chance Mackenzie goes up and becomes the primary target for the trio if they don't want to take it on Angela. But we'll see. It's very interesting. Do we want to get to our ratings now? We can just talk player really quick. First off, we talked about the people who went home, but let's go with the people who went home since. We just got to pour one out for Cedric, man. Like, what a rough go, volunteering to go home on Quinn's HOH. How do you rate Cedric's game at the end of the day with a letter grade? Because he was in such a great spot with the Pentagon, had a good HOH. HOH reign where Kenny went home, but all the chaos that happened with Tucker and keeping himself on the block and saving Angela, and then winning the AI arena to put up Quinn after Mackenzie's America veto. Like, what do you think about Cedric's game at the end of the day?
Honestly, I'm going to give him a C, just because, again, I think that it's not a D or an F for me, because I do think that his HOH week is great. Like, he comes out of that week squeaky clean.
Yeah, and even the edit tried to bury him with the whole build up with the Quinn blindside, and then immediately the next episode they were like, no, here's what actually happened.
I think I think that he has a great HOH, only goes down because he volunteers and he goes up as a pawn. And I think that's honestly, if anything, I think that's just a mistake of like a first time player who he didn't really know the game. Like, you don't know not to, you never go up, and going up, like, you can go home no matter who you are. It doesn't matter how many allies you have. And that, I think, was his undoing, is like, he felt safe, and that was the problem.
Well, I'm going to give him a big old B-, because here's the thing with Cedric. I think Cedric volunteers to go on the block because he's safe, because he is safe. The reason he's not safe is not because of him. It's because Quinn leaked the Pentagon to Tikor and Chemo, who flipped the vote. Tikor and Chemo don't flip the vote on Cedric if Quinn doesn't leak the Pentagon to them. If he doesn't, then that vote is very easy and Rubina goes home. So I think it is legitimately one of those things where he had no control over his demise. The only control he had was volunteering to go up. But I think this was the rare circumstance where Quinn sunk his game so much that I can't blame him. So I'm going to give him a B- because I think he has a really good strategic like regimen. He has a really good way about approaching the game. Everyone really liked him. Everyone wanted to see him around to where it broke their hearts to send him home. But he also is someone who I think if he got to the end would get some votes. And then we move on to the one who was running the house until Cedric went home, and then went home the very next week, Brooklyn, who we were both high on her game going in. Like, we were giving her a B plus
fall from
A.
grace.
Yeah, we were giving her crazy high grades going into this. But like, where does her game balance out to now?
I'm gonna give her a B. She's having a great
Okay.
game until she really until she's hit the wrong way in terms of like something said or the way like if Cedric doesn't go home in a blindside, she probably continues to run the game. You know what I mean? Like,
her and Chelsea run this game.
yes.
And Chelsea
I mean,
has, which is impressive on Chelsea that she's recovered, but like they would have handily run the game with Cedric, probably with Quinn, like that four. And who's the fifth in the Pentagon? I forget.
That for me is why I mean, like, I give her a B. It's one of those things that only reason that she even goes home is because of the like she just could not handle a moment of being blindsided. And again, how do you blame her? You don't know what's gonna like.
Yeah, I'm gonna give her a C only because I do think she even said in the preseason we both figured that like she could be someone that when things don't go her way, she has a little bit of an not anger issue because that implies bad things, but like she tends to come off a little too strong. And I do think that's what happened is yeah, it's like she faced adversity and rather than trying to like get on people's good graces and gloss it over, she kind of doubled down. Like she had that moment with Angela where she kind of confronted her about that HOH comp when in reality, like Angela, like it's just an HOH comp. Like I don't think there's any. She read into it too much and was grilling Angela, the charcuterie, hide and go veto, how she was throwing the stuff around the house. Like I think that kind of stuff showed that she was just like when things weren't going her way, she didn't handle it with as much composure as another contestant might have. So I would give her a C only because I think when she hits adversity, she's not good at playing from the bottom, whereas some other players like Chelsea we'll talk about played really well from the bottom. Next we do have Tucker, and this is so hard to assess because like overall I think his game is like a C minus. Like I don't think he played a good game, but he played a great entertaining game and he at least took those chances and those risks. I think there's no way he makes it to the end unless he wins out. That was the thing. So like how can you give him a high grade? But also like when he was in power, he got out his target. He's the only person from week one from day one of his HOH with Brooklyn. He had his eyes on Brooklyn. He got her out. Like he actually got his mission out. He got an alliance around him. It just that the next week he volunteers on T-Core's HOH. And I think if he doesn't volunteer and begs T-Core not to put him up, all it took was one little slingshot a different way, and he beats Cam in that veto. And in the AI, that puzzle just was not for him, and Mackenzie beat him. But I do think there's a world where if he survives, he does have a good enough foundation, but it is such a threat that, I don't think he was ever going to make it to jury unless he won out, even with the alliance he had, because I feel like eventually someone, like, because who were the next HOHs? It was T-Core. The very next one was Quinn. So I think Quinn would have taken the shot.
Quinn would have taken him out.
But what's your grade for Tucker?
I'm going to give him a C minus. I really do. I have nothing interesting to add to that because, again, I don't think in terms of gameplay he's a great player, but in terms of a player, he's great for the show.
Oh,
right?
Yeah.
Like he learned fast. He learned fast. In fact, if he doesn't make the blunder of volunteering to go up, there is a world where he potentially because again, we don't know if Quinn wins that next week HOH. If they can figure out a way to just never stop winning HOH, again, do I think he makes the end? No, but I think he probably makes it to like 7, and then they're like, we gotta get him go. So I'll give him a C minus.
You want to know who I like in his game too the most? Caleb from Big Brother 45. Or from Survivor 45.
Big Brother 45.
From Survivor 45, because he's the guy who comes in. He's so charismatic. Everyone wants to be around him because he's a funny class clown, and he's really good in comps, which in Survivor was great for Caleb because he, the Lulu tribe sucked, but he was the strongest guy on it, him and Sabaya. And then came a time where Sabaya was like, I need to cut this guy, and he got the one up on her. That kind of felt like Tucker in Brooklyn. But then once he's exposed, he plays the shot in the dark, and he gets all those votes the very next week. He has no shot. So I think that's really Tucker. The minute he was vulnerable, they took him out. All right, then we move on to to Joseph. I do not know how to assess this guy's game. I really don't, because I feel like
There
he
wasn't
did.
any.
Well, but the thing is, I think there was, like, I think he was still maneuvering the house well. He was getting in the right conversations, like knowing where the thing is, he knew where the power was and he knew to follow it there. The only thing is he
Right.
wasn't willing to go the extra mile and like try to like appease someone like Angela. He was straight up and
Right.
blunt with her, and it ended up backfiring. And he was almost so misted by Tucker that just by voting to keep Tucker, he was the only option to go out. It's kind of like Cedric, where I don't blame him for going up, because Quinn was sticking to this moral code of, I'm not going to put anyone on the block
Right.
that voted Tucker out because you're loyal to me. I'm like, now you choose loyalty? Like, I wish
Right.
Quinn had just like forgone that and been like, all right, this is the chance to take at Cam or Mackenzie. But instead he went for Joseph because he was the only other one available who voted to keep Tucker. And I don't fault Joseph for keeping Tucker, because at the time, Tucker was his number. So like, I don't think Joseph did anything wrong. I mean, yes, he handled Angela badly, but even then Angela voted to keep him and voted out Chemo. So like, his blunder wasn't even a huge blunder. It was all Quinn's blunder. It wasn't his. So I'm giving him a C+. I think he's above average. I don't think he's a great player. He reminds me of Mimi from last season. He kind of sits around, doesn't have any active gameplay because he has no control and power, but like, he doesn't do anything actively that bad. All he did was just being aligned with Tucker and voting to keep Tucker.
Right.
He became the only option. Like, I really think he had good bonds. He had a bond with Tucker. He had a bond with Quinn. He had a bond with Leah. Like, I didn't think he was a bad player. It just he had an unfortunate circumstance, and I just don't think he's very entertaining TV. That's the other difference.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to give him a C. Again, nothing like, it's not anything bad. It's just there's nothing to his game that is impressive.
All right,
that's really it.
Quinn. I'm not gonna give him an F. He didn't fail the game. He made the jury.
Oh,
but I would like you to go first, because I really don't know. I'm leaning somewhere, but I don't know if it's a little harsh.
Okay.
But what are you gonna go with?
Oh, you're going low.
Well, and we're not talking about them as a player, because I honestly think like Cedric as a Big Brother player, in terms of, we're gonna rank all these people at the end of the season, who has the most potential in a return. I think he's top 3 or 4. But like this season, he's not like a top 3 or 4 player. Right. But like, we're talking about this season. What would you give their grade for this season? What would you give Quinn? Is he getting an F for you?
No, he's not, because here's the thing about Quinn is that Quinn had such good ups and downs. Quinn was never the ultimate like controller of power, but at most moments he knew exactly what he was doing. The problem is not whether or not he knew what he was doing. The problem is how things played out for him, right? So like, Angela's HOH, where he deep fakes it. Like, again, like, that was the right move to keep himself safe. So, like, how do you knock someone for that? But how could he know that he's getting outplayed from the side? Like with Joseph going home. Again, like, that's such a blunder for a player.
And but it's not even putting them on the block, because people will say, yeah, he put Cedric on the block, he put Joseph on the block. It wasn't that. It's the fact that he put Cedric on the block and then outed the Pentagon to T4 and Chemo. That is the problem. It's not putting Cedric on the block. Cedric volunteered. The issue is going to the Pentagon. And then, okay, fool me once, shame on me, whatever. Shame on you, whatever. I don't know the phrase. But like, the second
fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me.
But it's like the second time, it's like even Joseph. It's like I just feel like it's one of those things where he didn't learn from his mistakes. But I do like him. Like, I like watching him play, because I like. It's the same thing with Tucker. I like watching him because it adds to the dynamic.
I gave Tucker a C-, and I don't think Quinn's a worse player than Tucker. So I can't give him I can't give Quinn a D when I gave Tucker a C-.
Yeah.
I'm going to give Quinn, you know what? In the fairness of what we're talking about, I'm going to give Quinn the same grade as Tucker and give him a C-.
Yeah.
Because I think Quinn's a better player than Tucker. I think Quinn was very self-aware. He really said week 1, like, I need to stop talking. And then he just didn't. Like that. I think that's the problem, right? Is that like, he knew what he was doing. He was able to gather allies pretty much everywhere he went. He was never on the outs so bad, even after blowing up shit, right? Like, he only goes home this week by chance. Like, there is a world where this week he's still here because Mackenzie doesn't use the veto, right? She only uses it at the 11th hour of deciding for the veto ceremony. And even then, like, she only makes that decision because it's brought to her. And there is a world where, like, if they're not, how can I blame Quinn for being in the backyard?
If Angela actually falls asleep, then
how can I blame Quinn for being in the in the backyard with people and that just happens to
Well,
be
that's what
Mr.
I said
Two,
earlier.
right?
This week was his best week. The week he
Right.
goes home is his best week of gameplay
And I
because he's
think
finally locking things in. I think with Joseph gone, he and Leah got much closer, which was
right.
big. I think he even with Angela smoothed stuff over to where Angela votes to keep him. I think this was the best gameplay for Quinn. The only problem is I think his Visionaries alliance, he really let that fall by the wayside. I think he should have really fought harder to keep, T-Core and Chemo happy. But the problem
Right.
is that he put Chemo up. And I think that's another thing where it's like you're upset when your allies go home, but then you're also putting allies on the block. Like he always
Right.
put allies on, and it's so hard to assess his game because I do think he has potential. If he were to return, I think he'd learn a lot from his
Yeah.
mistakes. It reminds me of Cochran on Survivor. Like I think if he played a second time, there's a chance he sweeps the game in a Cody like fashion. I
Right.
just think right now I agree with you, but he was conscious about it. I think him and Tucker were both conscious that they were making big moves
Yeah.
and like they weren't always paying off. The only problem is that Tucker was not surprised when things didn't go his way, and he was like, oh, "Okay." Quinn actively was shocked when Joseph
So
went home
good.
and
Oh,
shocked
that's
when Cedric went
oh,
home.
it's
Like
so
that
good.
shot of him crying. Like I know everyone's making fun of him on for line. I don't think he should be made fun of. Like it is sad to see,
No.
especially because we were all super fans, and I bet if we were in that position, it would be crushing to know like both your HOH reigns are being considered the worst ever of all time because your closest
Well,
allies went home
and
on them.
listen, I don't think, and I'll just be straight up, I don't think that's true. I think there are way worse because again, do I think that they like do I think they're good? Absolutely
No,
not.
the
They're trash.
results were bad, but
But
the meaning of how he went about it, I mean, like, he didn't get any bad blood from Cedric.
no,
Cedric volunteered, and even Joseph, he was like, "You were the only one left who voted out Tucker or who voted to keep Tucker." So, like, by default, it's like it
right,
was very much like a "you did this, not me." Like,
right.
I think he didn't get a lot of blood on his hands in his HOHs. He
Listen,
just didn't get his way.
I mean, like think of it this way, right? In terms of a super fan, I think that's hard, right? Where and we have such a good juxtaposition, right? We have two super fans. Chelsea is in the house still. She's running the game. She has not let the fact that she's a super fan change who she is as a player. She's really run with it. She has these moments of excitement, but she's never overrun by the fact that she is a super fan and therefore she thinks she has a ton of knowledge. Quinn, as a super fan, has all of these things that he wants to do. So I think he gets over, like, right from the get-go, so excited about the fact that he's playing this game. He gets
As
to
he
make
should.
this decision. And, like, am I gonna
We
pretend,
do the
like,
same thing, yeah.
you're going to pretend like I wouldn't be, like, a kid in a candy store? But, like, if you're going to call his HOH the worst HOH reign ever, have you forgotten about Frenchie, right? Like, those things. We have seen super fans implode immediately, right? Like Frenchie got a bit of power and managed to do like some of the stupidest things in the entire
Yeah.
world, right?
Yeah, I only disagree with that because Frenchie, it was his week one, and like there were no really set foundations in the house. He just made too many promises that he couldn't keep. It's a
Right,
disastrous week, but I think the problem with Quinn is that he had good structures built. He, by his own hand,
right,
made his position worse when he could have made it easily better
right.
in both circumstances.
But
And yeah,
I just
it's
think
tough.
to call it the worst HOH reigns
Right.
ever is a bit of a stretch, right?
Yeah, I
Again,
think the fact that it happened twice, his whole
for
game, a lot
sure.
of people are looking at badly, but I think the individual
But
HOH reigns are not the worst ever. I
what
agree.
and what I will the other thing that is right, if we're thinking about it from an even different perspective, for Quinn's HOH reigns, as a super fan, right, you're thinking about how you would play the game. The game changed. They changed it.
Yeah,
They
AI Arena.
actively changed it. They gave
Yeah.
three, like you are nominating three people. You are crossing your fingers that the right person wins. But like again, that leaves so many. You and I mean, there's no secret, right? Like, and this is no secret for anyone. Every super fan has probably thought about how they play the game a million times. No one could ever have prepared for an AI arena. So
And I love it. I love that that makes it great. Yeah.
and that's why it's so good, right? Is that we as fans are like, oh yes, but them as players, they're like three people every week. That's an extra
And
person
you
to
can't
add.
and the good news is you can't try to rally and that was the problem with the Cam vote. Once if they were preparing, if Brooklyn won the AI Arena, their whole thing was like, all right, well, is it Chelsea or Cam? They flipped on Cam. The problem is Brooklyn didn't win the AI Arena, so she
Right,
was the easy vote. But now you have a bunch of people now who are like, oh, they were trying to get out Cam. And then
right,
Cam feels slighted. So I think it's one of those things where it's really interesting to see that stuff, especially where they try to flip a vote and then it doesn't even
right.
need to happen in the first place because your target doesn't win anyway.
Well,
Yeah,
and that's just so that in and of itself is difficult, right?
yeah.
Because now a lot of people have shown their cards. I think that give him your grade. You haven't even given him your grade yet.
I'm giving him a C minus. You've sold me on the C minus. I don't think it's a D or an F. Like I gave Kenny, I think, a D because he didn't fail the game because he at least was active in the game. Like I think if you're playing the
I
game,
think we gave Matt
you're
an
not
F.
getting an F. I think if you're playing the game, you're not getting an F. And if you're playing the game where you or at least at power at some point, you're not getting a D. The problem is like I think when he was in power, he just totally did the wrong things. But again, that's what is a compelling thing about Quinn's character. And I think everyone who's saying Quinn's a good player, you're being too tough. Like, no, he's not a good player. But I'm also not saying he's a bad person either. I think he's a great person. He's a great kid. And honestly, after the end of this episode, I felt bad seeing him go, especially not getting to meet Julie Chen. He had to meet his childhood hero, Jerry O'Connell, that he was named after.
What I do think is going to be very cool, and I think that he will love this, is the fact that Quinn will probably be the only person in Big Brother history during Julie Chen's time as a host to ever not meet Julie Chen upon eviction, which in and of itself is pretty freaking cool, right? Like,
yeah. And he'll get to meet her at finale night. I wouldn't even be.
He'll meet her. He'll meet her
if she meets him at the jury house and is like, "Hi, I'm Julie Chen. Let's do an interview here." Like, I think that'd be a cool moment because he is living the dream, and I think seeing him live the dream and get excited over the experience is what I think a lot of people have connected with, like myself. Like I know Matt, who watches the show and watches Big Brother and watches our show. Like he loves Quinn, and he's like a Quinn defender through and through.
Right.
To where it's hard sometimes to talk about Quinn's game in a way because you feel bad talking about him because it almost kind of blends into the person. And a lot of people have talked about how Quinn's annoying in the DRs and stuff, but it's also like the producers really amp it up at the DRs. Like it's you can't blame him for screaming at you in the DRs. If you want, turn it down on your volume. Like I don't,
I think my big thing too also is the way that I think about Quinn, and again, you know how much I love him. I think of Quinn as a less polished Tyler Crispin, right? So much information, so many connections, so many people talking, but he can't keep his mouth shut, right? Like Tyler, one of the things that made Tyler in 20 so good is that Tyler had all these pieces of information and he was so particular, right? Like it was always choice based. Quinn had all these pieces of information and just was like, do you want to know what alliance there is? Like that's the problem, right? Is that he had power and rather, again, I think it's as a super fan, right? You have the power and all of a sudden you're like, I gotta tell someone, like I'm in an alliance, right?
Even week 2, he ruined his bond with Angela because he had to spread something about Angela being racist, and it's like one of those things where it's like really difficult because like he even said in the DRs, he's like, I'm stirring the pot, and it's like, but like you didn't have to, and I think honestly losing Angela was his biggest flaw because I think if he's able to keep the loyalty to Angela, there's a chance. He's got that Tyler upside where no one's targeting him. I think the problem is because he turned on Angela so early and had her distrusting of him. She's such a vocal presence, and I really do think for his game it was best to get rid of Angela, but it's just no one else's game. It was best for that. So it's been a tough go for him. I do think I give him his props. He went out there, he played. I wouldn't be surprised if this taints his love for the show and the game once he sees the outside because he has not been received very well by the fan community, especially like other podcasters that he's like talked about being excited to go on. Like they have not been the biggest fans of him. Like RHAP, they don't really love Quinn. Some of them do, some of them don't. But that's the thing is like you're putting yourself out there for millions and millions to watch, and sometimes you're not going to land. I mean, look at Corey's reception last year. Some people love him. Some people hate him. So it's really just like a love or hate relationship. But the good news is he didn't do anything to actively make us hate him in the way that like put last season Cameron and Matt did, like I think it's or like Kyle or Luke, like these people who are bad for other reasons that people don't like to talk about because they're icky. Quinn's just people don't like his game, but I think people are going to respect him, especially in the long run, especially if he ever comes back. Let's quickly just go through the rest of these because we've all talked about them at length, but like just right now in their game, Chemo, I think he's playing a solid C- game, below average. What do you think?
I'm going to give him a D right now.
Really?
Yeah, listen.
He's in a trio though. That's. But he's survived the block twice.
Being in a trio guarantees you the end. It doesn't guarantee you a win. But you know what I mean? Like, and this is coming from me after talking at the beginning of the game. Like, I thought Chemo had a great, and I still do think he has a great social game. I think he's a great player in terms of he's able to keep bonds with people, but he's not really playing. And that to me is, again, he's playing the game of Big Brother, so he will not get an F. He is only in power at any point. He has not made any game-moving decisions. Stop, hold on. The only thing that I say, and this is his move in regards to the fact that he is the one who gives it, but he's not the one who decides. His speech saving him is a monumental moment in Big Brother, for sure. Only having a monumental moment does not a good player make, right? Being able to convince people emotionally, I guess if I'm doing anything, I'm bumping him up to a C minus. But like, I don't think he's a good player. I think he's connected well with people. But again, yeah, it's part of the game. But what is Chemo doing that nobody else is? You know what I mean? Like, he's still on the block.
But him and Tikor are the ones who ran this flip.
Yeah.
They're the ones who flipped on the Pentagon, though.
A long time ago, and again, I don't even think it's as much Chemo as I think it's Tikor. You know what I mean? Like,
well, let's get to her. I think she's playing right now A minus. I'm not going to give her an A.
Oh, I'll give her an A. I'll give her an A plus.
I think she's playing great. I think she's playing so well. She's got Rubina and Tikor wrapped around her finger, and Chelsea. And I think to an extension, even Cam to an extent. So I really do like her a lot. And I think, I would give Rubina like a C, because like I think her and Chemo are following Tikor's lead, but like, she's the one actively making the decisions, Tikor. Right. But what would you give Rubina?
Rubina, I'd give a B plus. B plus. Again, I think Rubina's playing well, and we've talked a lot today about how the fact that like she could just turn the game on its head if she really, really wanted to.
All she has to do is decide to go against the trio, and I guarantee, like,
is that in
Cam and Mackenzie would embrace her.
If she had actively made some decisions and like had been talking about how she's not looking to go to the end with Tikor to let her win, she'd be an A for me. But because we know that, she can't be an A because she's not playing for herself, but she's playing a good game, right? Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, I think she's a better player than Chemo for that reason. I don't think
the thing is she's going out and making we both said Chemo is only playing a social game, but like she's also only playing a social game, but she's doing so in a way that she's branching out of her trio, whereas Chemo is just like kind of staying with his clique, which is I think Chemo's personality. He's laid back, but it doesn't make him a threat to win at the end. Now Chelsea, you seem very high on her. I gave Tikor an A minus, so I'm gonna give her a B plus only because I think her threat level showing more than Tikor's is, and Tikor's more well protected. Whereas I feel like right now Cam is the only one and maybe Tikor who are willing to go 100% at bat for her. I think there's a way Mackenzie would flip on her. I think there's a world where Tikor would even flip on her. So I still put her at a B plus because I think people have clocked her threat level. But
I'm going A. Again, I think that it's too hard not to clock people's threat level at this point. Nobody's hiding really well. Nobody's hiding their threat level incredibly well. I think the only person who does is Tikor, which is why she's a little bit higher. But again, I don't think it's even Tikor really hiding her threat level. I think it's just she's got people in her corner, and that sometimes is more than enough. I think and again, she's not hiding her threat level in the fact that like people have openly said they would lose to her. They just want her to win. They know that she's that threat. But I think with Chelsea, right, her threat level is out there, but she has a lot of ability to just kind of trade back and forth. I think her connections are good. Her connections have more of an opportunity to continue winning competitions to keep her safe. You know what I mean? Like, Chemo's not winning to take Tikor off the block, I don't think. Mm-hmm. Like, Rubina might. But with, like, Mackenzie and Cam, if Chelsea's on the block next to Leah or Angela, they're taking off Chelsea. They are. Yeah. They're going to.
Yeah. Now we move on to Leah. This might surprise people, but I'm giving her a B minus. I'm going above C territory because I do think the fact that she hasn't been nominated yet, even though she's been talked about, is still very impressive because she's doing something that people still want to keep her around. She's not the biggest threat. Even when people are thinking about getting rid of her, they're putting up Quinn, they're putting up Joseph. You know, like there's people who are going up over her. I mean, she obviously couldn't go up instead of Joseph, but that's the thing. Like, they were always looking at other people ahead of her. And I do think she's playing well. The only thing is I don't think she has any agency right now. But now that she is kind of a free agent, I think there's an opportunity to rise. So I give her a B minus because I really do think she's played the game really well so far. This has been her first big week blunder. This paired with the Joseph eviction going into this week losing Quinn. Like, that was a double blow. But she has Quinn on the jury who might just blindly by love vote for her as well. She has Angela, who's now undyingly loyal to her after she wronged her that one time and Leah called her out. I think there's a world where she could still pick up Mackenzie, maybe Chelsea and Cam. So I think there's a world Leah bounces back. So I'm going to give her a B minus. I think she's better than people would like to believe.
Yeah, I'm going to give her a B. I don't think she's playing poorly. I think she's a little invisible, but again, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. Mm-hmm. You're too visible and people have the immediate thought to want to get rid of you. But again, like, it's one of those things where I absolutely understand why she doesn't win a jury vote against someone like Chelsea. But I also don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that Leah doesn't have enough time to turn the game around and show why she deserves to win. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think there's enough time for Chemo to show why he deserves to win. Like, I just don't think that he's going to be able to convince people. I still think in the situation of him being in a final two with, like, Angela, he probably gets T-Core and Rubina's votes because they want to vote for him. So I think that what I will say is I think there's probably not a 0 vote finalist here. I don't think we're looking at a technical like 7-0. I think okay, stop.
I love her, but like I think there's a world Angela gets no votes, and it's sad.
What I will say is the only reason I don't is because I think that they will decide that she is not going to be a 0 vote finalist.
Yeah, they almost give her a pity vote. Like Leah votes for her because she's like, "I'm proud of you, Angela." Yeah, that's a good point.
I think that this cast feels that way. I don't know if that's correct, but they feel that way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So back to the Leah of it all. I think I'm going to give her a B because I do think like there's a world where she turns the game around. If she uses this week well, puts T-Core and Chelsea up on the block and goes, decide everyone, pick.
Yeah, that'd be huge.
Boom. Yeah. Huge for her.
Huge.
The problem then becomes, does she become an immediate target? I actually don't necessarily think so.
I don't think so either. I mean, she made a big move last week, and no one really cared. Everyone was just talking about Quinn and Joseph. They weren't talking about Leah and Angela. Which brings us now to Mackenzie, who does the same exact thing as Leah last week. I'm giving her a B, higher than Leah. I think she's a little bit more active. She's in a few more alliances. The only reason I'm not giving her quite an A is because I do think this veto was really good for Chelsea to get out Quinn. I don't know how good it was for her because she gets Angela in her corner, but I still think Angela's more loyal to other people like Leah. And I just feel like Mackenzie now is the biggest comp threat with Quinn gone. I think Quinn going actually made her position a lot more difficult. And we have seen her be a very easy de facto target in the past. So I think she's better positioned than she ever has been. But there is that worry that like, well, we keep trying to get her out and she wins AI arenas. Like, why don't we just take a shot now? You know, the second she loses a veto, we haven't seen her vulnerable after an AI arena or veto before because she won this veto. So if she doesn't win the next veto, who's to say they won't just snipe her out?
I mean, I think that Mackenzie, I'm going to give her an A. Because again, we're in an 8-person scenario. I can see a world where she does pair up with Chelsea and Leah and Angela. That's a 4. That's half the house. If Leah is nominated, I don't think she's coming after Mackenzie. I think she's going to come after like a Leah or a T-Core or someone like I imagine that Mackenzie's probably not the first on anyone's current hit list. The problem that I see for her in the future is if Chelsea goes and then Cam goes and she's not able to reintegrate, what happens? But I think she is. Like I think she's a good enough player that like she will start calling people out subtly. And that's what happened this week, right? Where like Angela comes, Mackenzie says, Quinn's the better option for me. And so he goes, right? You know what I mean? So I could see that happening.
And now we'll go on to Cam, who is still a little quiet, but is definitely like heating up his game. Like we definitely see where his game is lying and where it's headed toward. I'm gonna give him a sweet old B. I'm same with Mackenzie. I think there is a world where take the shot at Cam because he's there and he's out there and he's not won the veto. Maybe you just easily backdoor him, especially if they want to go with an all girls thing. Chelsea, the only thing is like that's Chelsea's number 1 and Chelsea's running the game. The only problem though is that as we've seen with like Chemo and T-Core is like, if Chemo goes this week, it sucks, but like I have other numbers. I think Chelsea's looking at it where like she would try to fight hard to keep Cam, but if she can't, she's not going to stick out her neck for Cam the way like Quinn would for Leah. Or Leah would for Quinn. I guess Quinn didn't stick his neck out for Leah because he tried to put her on the block, but or tried to get her on the block when they found out the veto was going to be used. But I think Cam could be just like a weird boot if like you get a double eviction or something in the next 2 weeks. But I think he's good. He's good. I'm actually going to go B+. I think he's like really well positioned right now to make it. If they don't want to do an all girls thing, I think he can make it Final 4 is like where I'm thinking right now for him. Maybe even Final 3.
I'm going to go with B. Just because it's the same. I just don't see his path to the end.
Yeah, that's
unless he wins a lot of comps.
I mean, Chelsea's number 1. So if Chelsea's going to win the game, that's his path to the end. Is you take your closest ally. So Yeah. So you're thinking Mackenzie wins. I'm thinking T-Core wins. We both are rooting for Rubina for our winner pick. So like we both think there's going to become a time where they go after Chelsea and
Yeah.
snipe her out before the end is what it sounds like. But if Chelsea makes it to the end, I think there's a good chance Cam's with her. But last but not least, Angela Gheesling, bringing it back to the title of this video. I put Angela Gheesling in the video just because I do think there is a world where like maybe she is just smart and like she's making these moves and it's just coming across emotional. That's why I brought up Vanessa. I'm not 100% convinced because I don't think she's convinced. But I'm gonna give this is the hardest thing to say because I'm not gonna say she's an above average player, so she's not going above a C. But I'm also not gonna say she's a below average player because she's somehow surviving every week. She's somehow making it happen. I'm giving her a C because I think she's right now playing a very average game where she's made a lot of mistakes, but also made a lot of big moves that
Yeah.
have worked for her. And you know what? Right now, I think most people should want to be taking her to the end. And if she's trying to get at least second place, which is a pretty big amount of money still, like I think she's doing all the right things.
Right.
And if she's able to get that speech at the end that somehow wows people, like if she's sitting up against like a Cam who just like is too chill that people don't buy his game, or even Aaliyah who doesn't have a game to sell, who knows? Maybe she does. Maybe she does pull some votes. I would love to see it.
I don't know about any of that. I'm gonna give her a C, maybe even a C minus.
That's fair.
I told you.
Hey, it's fair.
And again, I really do. I really do like. It's not a personal thing. I don't find her as interesting as other people do in terms of the game. In fact, I find her sometimes kind of like grating to watch. Again, not in a way where like she's living her dream, and I appreciate that because God knows if I was the person there, I'd be annoying as hell. Like I know who I am, but my problem is, I think I think a lot of people, what a lot of people love on Twitter and what a lot of people love about Angela's game is they think she's this mastermind, and I just don't think that's true.
I don't think it's true. I think it's a funny meme. I think it's a funny meme. I think she's underrated. That's
I
the thing.
don't
I think
know,
she's
man. I don't know if it's. I don't think it's just a meme. I think it. I think people really do think it, and I think that that's my problem. Right? Is that like I like Angela as a person is probably wonderful. As a player, I am never sold because I think a lot of it just has to do with like. Here's my problem, right? And I'm going to use the last week as my example. Angela is on the block and only comes off because she couldn't sleep and walked outside. And she has convinced herself that because everyone else is somewhere and she's not there, they are conspiring against her. I liken it. And again, people love Kat Dunn. She's wonderful. Was she a good player? No. But Kat was consistently convinced that she was always on people's minds. And I think that Angela is convinced. And again, I can't blame her. If she's vulnerable, she's on the block. That's for sure. Like, she has reason to be paranoid. Why I don't find her impressive is because when she comes off, it is not for the sake of the fact that, it's not for the sake of the fact that, like, she has gotten herself off of it. It's that someone has deemed there is a bigger threat. And I might think that that's genius, and maybe I'll be eating my words. I might think that that's genius if she really believed that she was the threat that they don't think she is. But she doesn't think that. As far as we know, she doesn't think that. She thinks she's an individual with a lot of heart. Do I think that there's prowess in there? Oh, absolutely. There's so much. She is playing. That's why she's not lower than Quinn or Tucker, because she's not only, and that's why for me Chemo is lower than all of them, because Chemo may be in a better spot,
but he's still sitting on the block every week, with the potential of going home,
and he is still somehow seen as a bigger threat when I think that that's just a heinous read, right? I think that Angela is a good player, but because she herself she can't, this is very teacher of me, right? If you do not believe that you can reach a larger, a higher height, you're not going there. So she does not believe, she just wants to be there, right?
Yeah.
I don't think she's thought about how to win. I think she thinks about how to stay.
There's two things that I think this episode that showed me that Angela actually has some strategic regimen. The one, obviously, she goes in the backyard and sees things. She's paranoid and brings it to Chelsea. But, like, she has such a close bond with Leah that in actuality, if she really thought there was something up, she might ask Leah first before going to Chelsea and confirming it because she cares about the bond. She cared enough about the game that she went to Chelsea with or without the knowledge that Leah was out there. And I think that showed that she was putting game first, personal second. Because if she was truly believing that Leah was part of a five, she probably would have went to Leah first. And I think she was thinking, you know what, this is a good way to try to get off the block. I really do think
Yeah,
and that's by feeds.
I don't
Just
know.
I can't 100% know for sure, but that's just by the feeds. Like I really do think it was active in like this is my now that she sees this happening, she's like, you know what, whether or not this is my best move. The other thing is also that oh shoot, I forgot what my other thing was. What was my other thing? I had another move that convinced me. Oh, okay. So when Leah then gets upset about it, saying you had all these things in your mouth that I'm hearing, she could have gone up to Chelsea and been like, I never said that to you. She decided to take the bullet and say, you know what? I'm just gonna play the crazy lady. I'm gonna make Chelsea think I'm just the crazy lady who's getting emotional and doesn't know what she's talking about because I don't want to piss off Chelsea and I know she's in power. I think she acknowledges Chelsea's position and she's not trying to get on the wrong side because I think she's realized now that she has to start
Right.
cozying up to some of these players and actually not lashing out at them at every second. Even her and Chelsea had a little fight on the feeds earlier in the week that we kind of saw a little bit of where she's like, well, why can't you go for someone else? And there was like a back and forth. But I think with that conversation she showed, she was like, you know what? I really do think like I can just play this one off like it was crazy Angela. That's the thing is if she can own that stuff in
Yeah.
the end, I think there's a position. I think she's more savvy than people. I think she's underrated. I think some people are overrating her by calling her like Angela Gheesling. That's a joke. She's not Dan, but I don't think she's a worthless. Like I think she actually
Yeah.
has some strategy in there that I think some people are not seeing. So I'm somewhere in the middle where I think she's underrated by the people who are doubting her, and she's overrated by the people who are mother. Like she's mother, but like
Yeah.
she's mother. I love her, you know, and I'm very excited to
Yeah.
see her continue. Like I really think she's been making the season for me to where I was worried when Tucker went. I was like, I don't know if it's going to be as entertaining, but I've been entertained by her, but also by the good gameplay. But I think her and Quinn have kept things entertaining. And even though Quinn's gone, I think she's going to continue to make things entertaining this week. And Leah's going to start making things entertaining. And Mackenzie has been really amping it up. The only one who's still very chill that isn't bringing the TV is like T-Core and Cam, but they're playing good enough games that I'm entertained by that. So I really think it's a great season. And I'm glad we're both on the same page about that. I think it's the best since
Yeah.
I don't even know when. I think it's the best of this like new era, like since at least since All Stars, the second All Stars.
It's the best since All Stars. I think it's tied for me since I started.
I know you love 20 so much too.
Well, yeah, I think for me it's tied with 20 because it has the same style, kind of like up and downs, right? Where like every week every week they go in thinking it should be easy and it turns out like a train wreck, and I love
I
it.
love that
Like
too.
that for me is why I like it so much. I love I will say I also love the shift from from 9 jurors to 7. I think that should never leave. I think that's a brilliant change because
Joseph disagrees.
Well,
On a
okay.
regular season, I'd make jury. Like, no, this is a regular season, bud.
Right.
That's the new way.
Think that's the thing, right? Is that like they already did the like, this you actually on a regular season, if this was 20 years ago, you wouldn't have made jury. You would have been out of jury as well. Like that's
Yeah.
I love that they're back at 7 because it's more meaningful trying to get to that purposeful thing.
And
right?
and that's why last week Leah can use the veto on Angela, and this week she's like, I'm not even considering it. My goal is to bring her to jury. I don't care when she goes now because
Right.
I want her as a vote for. And I love that mindset too. That's why I loved what Leah did because it was like, yeah, in the moment that's the best move because now this is a jury vote, and we even saw in retrospect Joseph wouldn't have voted for her, so it was the perfect move for Leah.
I just think I love it. I love the fun little memes and references. The whole like bring back the key wheel and the HOH comp was so fun. And like, Rachel was like, "What the hell is the key wheel?" And I was like, "Oh my god! Like you don't even know. Like it's so so fun."
We got the key wheel last season for an episode with the Cam pieing people in the face. I wish we could bring that back. I love the key wheel, and it keeps things fun. Like imagine the key wheel with Angela, like on the week she's safe, where it's like she's waiting and then she starts crying. Like oh god, it would be so good. This would be the perfect season for the key wheel. But yeah, it's a great season. It's probably my favorite since at least. I'm gonna say right now probably since 14, just because I love Dan's game so much. But like I like it better than 20 only because 20 at the end kind of tapered out for me with like the boots where it was like Fessy and Haley and Sam. Like that whole stretch was like
sorry, that was my I like. But don't forget Fessy went out on Scotty, or no, Scotty went out on Fessy's HOH,
right.
and then
And
they
then
took
afterwards,
Fessy out, and then they brought Scotty back in. Oh, it was so good.
I think the post jury is not as entertaining as the pre jury on 20, but here I'm just as entertained in this 1 week as I have been with the AI
Sure.
arena stuff. So right now it's right now if we're
Sure.
looking at like the line graphs, this is where it's been with 20, and now it's slightly going above 20. It could start to taper out again. Definitely better than last season where it was the same thing. The last season up until the jury, we were amped. We were like, okay, pressure cooker's back. Sari is running the house. Izzy got blindsided, but then they did the zombie twist, and that totally stunned the momentum with Jared and Cam. And now, ever since then, they were unable to recover because then you had the Jag dominance, and you had Bowie Jane making it to the end. So I think this season,
I said it. Not a good winner. I said not a good winner.
worst winner of the season series. And I like Jag, and I was entertained by a lot of his games.
Big Brother winner, I think.
Well, if you get voted out in the season, you're the worst Big Brother winner. Unless someone else gets voted. Like, if they were to bring Matt back and he won the season, like, he would be the worst next to Jag. But, like, every other Big Brother winner did not get evicted. So
God, horrible.
Yeah, I mean, like, as much as I like Jag and I picked him to win, like, you know, it's almost an asterisk because he did get voted out. It just
it's a win.
But again, you gotta play the season, and he played the season well. He won the, you know, he stayed in because that was the twist. This season, no battle backs, unless there's a battle back that we don't know about. I think this has been a really great season, so I'm glad we get to talk about it. We're gonna hopefully, now that we're gonna be getting into the Survivor season soon, Zach and I have even talked. We're gonna try to keep Thursday nights as like our time to do this. We will have watched Wednesday night Survivors and then Thursday night Big Brother, so it's perfect. We can just kind of like cap it off Thursday nights, talk about both. This weekend, we're going to hopefully get on to do some cast assessment for Survivor because we got 18 new people to talk about. 16, if you're a podcast fan and you know who Asia Welch and John Lovett are, then it's 16 new faces and 2 people you've seen before, but 18 new Survivor faces, at least for the Survivor game to talk about. And then Matt and I have a little video where we're going through the old school seasons, talking about who we would bring back for Survivor 50. We have that ready to go. And then next week, we will be fully in the swing of Survivor. So it'll be exciting. You can stay tuned this weekend at some point. Zach and I will get on to do that cast assessment. But then next Thursday is the hope where we can get on. We can talk about the Survivor premiere, and we'll talk about Big Brother, whatever happens this week. We still have no HOH, Zach. I'm checking now. I don't think
no, we have nothing. We have nothing. I've been looking.
So we will next Thursday, or actually when we do our cast assessment for Survivor, we can mention Big Brother if there's something we want to talk about on there at the end. But stay tuned this weekend. We'll do our cast assessment. Next week, we will get that cast Survivor 50 wish list video, and then you will get on Thursday an eviction recap for whoever's out next week, plus our Survivor episode 1. And if you're an alumni out there and you want to be on our show and you're legally allowed to and CBS isn't restricting you, like, let us know. We'd love to interview you. As tough as we are, like, we love to talk to Tucker or Joseph or whoever will want to come on, even Matt. We'll talk to you, Matt. But I would love to, you know, reach out. So if you know anyone who knows the show and wants to come on here and talk, we'll gladly do it. Just to speak your mind. We'll let you have as much time as you want, or as CBS is allowed to give you. But if you are watching this, thank you for watching this. We had a lot of live viewers in and out throughout. Zach, anything you want to plug before we end this very lengthy recap?
No.
Okay, great. Thank you guys so much. Zach and I love talking Big Brother. This is what we would normally do if we just watched the episode together. So it's great that we have a place to do it where you all can enjoy and we can actually feel like we're actually being compensated in somehow by views, and watching other people actually watch our madness is kind of crazy. It's why even amongst our busy schedules, we still try to find the time to do it. I know we've been very busy the last few weeks, but I think we're going to be back on track. Even though school's just started for Zach, we were still trying to find a way. And hopefully we'll be able to talk more. We don't talk about Bachelor anymore, and this would have been a wild week to talk about it if we had.
Crap.
But we also don't talk about Dancing with the Stars, but this would also been a wild week to talk about it because we got the cast. But if you're watching Dancing with the Stars, let us know too. And if you want my Dancing with the Stars thoughts, I'm gonna do that on TikTok this year. So I will be giving my Dancing with the Stars thoughts on TikTok. And if Zach wants to join in, he can. But like, we're not gonna devote all the time to watching and scoring and just because we already have to watch 2 shows now with Survivor and Big Brother. So Zach, any last words for the fans out there?
Thanks for bearing with us.
Yes, thank you,
Dylan, for bearing with me. No, that's it.
Stay with us.
Again, it's our favorite time of year, but holy crap, if we're not two of the busiest individuals you've ever met. So
Yeah. Oh, and New York Film Fest is starting in 2 weeks, where I will be like MIA for like those 2 weeks, just seeing
very
movies
cool.
all day long. Where it's like, where am I gonna find time to do this? We will find the time.
will
We will
find
find the time.
time.
We will find the time, even if we have to record at like 5 a.m. in our cars. We will not do that. But like, you know
You're
what?
not doing
We'll
that.
find the time. And with more episodes per week, it'll be shorter episodes. Like this one, we had to talk about 5 weeks, but like in the future, we will be able to talk
Correct.
about less and less. So, thank you guys. Anyway, it's been almost 2 hours. Thank you guys. Get some sleep. And hopefully tomorrow morning we'll know a new HOH, and we'll see who it is. Rooting for Leah for the chaos. That's what I'm saying.
Oh my
Rooting
God,
for
we
Leah.
got the HOH. It's
Matt has come back from the multi-matrix, and Matt has won HOH. What?